of the land by Charles Arapsigei, Charles Munene Gatimo, Catherine Kamanja, and their respective approvals, and any premium payment made. That the efforts to resolve the matter with the relevant ministry and agencies have been futile, that the issues in respect of this petition is made and are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or statutory body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Public Petitions Committee 1, establishes the status of ownership of LR 209-11970 in the Dandora Molem area, Kangundo Road, Nairobi, in the Embakasi West constituency, vis-a-vis the allegedly illegally acquired title deed held by the private developers. 2, intervenes to have the government, through the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, to avail or table all legal documents in regard to ownership of LR 209-11970 in the Dandora Molem, Kangundo area in the Embakasi West constituency. 3, makes any other order or direction that it deems fit in the circumstances. This petition, Honorable Speaker, is presented by myself as Member of Parliament for Embakasi West, and I thank you for your indulgence once again. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mark Mwenje. We'll commit the petition to the Committee on Public Petitions to report back as is required in 60 days. Is Nimrod here? The Vice Chair? Yes, Janet. You report back in 60 days. Honorable Sioi and Honorable Namwar, I had already directed that your statements be pushed to next week, but on your intervention, I'll direct for them to be on the order paper tomorrow at 2:30.
Order number 9, the care, and order number 8, procedural motion, exemption of specified business from Standing Order 43.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I move that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 12, order number 12 in today's paper from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business, not sponsored by the majority or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. Honorable Speaker, if you look at order number 12, the finance bill, and as you know, the nation is really waiting for debate on this matter. And as you gave your direction, Honorable Speaker, yesterday, that we spend today morning and tomorrow, and today afternoon and tomorrow, just consolidating our thoughts and debate on the issues of the finance bill. This is an important matter, as it is, Honorable Speaker and members, and therefore we move that we exempt it from the provisions of Standing Order 43, so that we can start robust debate on this, so that eventually this House makes an informed decision at the end on the finance bill. So, Honorable Speaker, I beg to request that the Honorable Whip Osoro.
You beg to move?
I beg to move.
Yes.
I beg to move and request that the Honorable Osoro seconds. And you can only say I second if you want.
Osoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it's indeed true that we really have a lot on our tray in this week and early next week. And for that reason, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second.
Thank you. Honorable members, I now propose a question which is that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 12 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. You put the question? I now put the question at order number 8, which is that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 12 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Those of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill, Senate Bill number 29 of 2023, second reading. Question to be put.
Order, honorable members on their feet, take your seats. The nearest seat. Honorable members, I now put the question at order number 9, which is that the Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill, Senate Bill number 29 of 2023, be now read a second time. As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide a framework for the care and protection of child parents within the counties. To provide a framework.
Order. Honorable Kaluma, you sit on this chair. You know very well if you want to call for admission, it must be contemporaneous to the decision by the Speaker. And in your attempt to lobby for support, you know you have failed. Go ahead.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide a framework for the care and protection of child parents within the counties, to provide a framework through which an expectant girl child or a child parent may actualize their right to basic education and at the same time ensure the care of their children and for connected purposes.
Thank you. Honorable Kajuang, you have a second bite to this bill at committee stage. Yes. It's entirely up to you. The Speaker has no fight no dog in this fight. Next order.
Order number 10, the Kenya Roads Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Kenya Roads Act and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Public Service Internship Bill, National Assembly Bill number 63 of 2022, second reading.
Honorable Naisula, I want to stand down your bill because I know it has a balance of 33 minutes. But because of the importance of order number 12 and the direction I gave yesterday, you should indulge the House as well. And I'll direct that your bill be given priority on Wednesday next week.
Most obliged, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry, but you had my direction yesterday, and you've already also passed a motion to exempt this morning.
Well directed.
The kind of business that your bill has. Next order.
Order number 12, the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024, second reading.
Chairman, Finance, and as the chairman comes to move the bill, honorable members, you recall my direction yesterday. We will have the bill moved and debated the whole of this morning. This afternoon at 2:30, apart from preliminaries, we'll go straight to the bill. If there is continued interest, tomorrow morning we already created a sitting. From 9:30, we'll go on with the bill. Subject to continued interest, we will go to the afternoon, and regardless of what we'll be obtaining on the floor, House Business directed and recommended that the question will be put on tomorrow afternoon. So those of you who want to speak to this bill, you have this morning, tomorrow, to this afternoon, tomorrow morning, and a part of tomorrow afternoon. Yes, Honorable Nikal, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to raise this in relation to the finance bill and particularly the report, and I'm actually literally seeking your guidance. That is the main issue. Mr. Speaker, the report of the bill, as you had indicated yesterday afternoon, would reach us later, and it did. However, Mr. Speaker, I want your guidance on the procedure that this report followed. Ordinarily, when we have a bill, the bill would come in the first reading, then it goes to public participation, as this one did. And then the committee would then get a report. That report would then come to you. The Speaker, after it comes to you, you will then approve it for it to be tabled. It will then tabled. Then once again, it then comes a public document, and it can be discussed, and we discuss it, and it helps us to discuss the bill, which is actually what we are going to discuss. But Mr. Speaker, if then the bill goes through and goes to the committee of the whole house and the third reading and it's passed, it then will go to the president for assent. And that is the procedure. In this case, Mr. Speaker, when the committee had apparently finished and they had probably signed it by both members from both sides of the divide, so to speak, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, then this report...
Honorable Nikal.
Mr. Speaker, I'm seeking your guidance, so if you let me complete, then you will give me the guidance. Mr. Speaker, before that happened, this report was actually presented in a Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting, which definitely was chaired by the president, even if it is in capacity as the leader of that coalition, but definitely he was now taking part in the legislation. At that point, the members of the committee from the Azimio side were not in that. And therefore, the report then came back, and Mr. Speaker, as far as I know, you actually had to go through it in the late afternoon yesterday, and we're aware, and as you promised, by about 6:50, I think it was then tabled after you approved it. Mr. Speaker, and that by about 10:30, it was then loaded up and we looked at it. My concern, Mr. Speaker, we seem to have then breached the process because we now had input from the executive, that is the president, before what we would have expected after the third reading is then when it would go. And if the president had views, he would then bring his views, his reservations and his suggestions. But here we did actually jump. Mr. Speaker, I'm raising this.
What is the issue?
The issue is that it actually went to the president and he had an input before it came to us. And why I'm doing this, Mr. Speaker, there is precedence that when we had the BBI process, Mr. Speaker, the only reason when it went to court is that the president then did participate before the correct time, and therefore it ceased to be our Njiku issue. And Mr. Speaker, I looked at this and I saw some parallel and say, have we once again jumped the boat and then opened what we may pass, if we pass, to other people taking other actions because we didn't go through the correct procedure. Mr. Speaker, I put this in actually with very good faith so that we look at the division so that the legislative does its work and completes and then takes it to the executive instead of bringing the executive to start legislation before their time comes. It is in very good faith that I raise this, Mr. Speaker.
It is in very good faith, but you have just made a general statement. What do you want the Speaker to do?
I want the Speaker to rule that the report we have that will actually guide us actually already has input from the executive, which it shouldn't have, because with the executive would then come later after we pass it, after the third reading. So, Mr. Speaker, what guidance do you give? I think this is a very important constitutional issue, Mr. Speaker, and
Thank
your
you.
guidance will be extremely important. in this.
Honorable, thank you, Honorable Nyikal, for raising that point. Honorable members, I don't want to open debate on this majority side. I have read the report, cover to cover. I have seen no reference to any meeting that you are talking about in that report. That's number one. Number two, caucusing among formations in parliament in a democracy is normal. Just as the majority side caucused, I'm also aware and I was informed, and I provided space for the minority side as your speaker for you to caucus last evening. And you did. Both caucusing are legitimate and legal under our standing orders and our constitution. Both caucusing and the outcomes cannot and will not be part of any report before the House. Indeed, if you have read the report like I have read, it has no reference to the majority side caucus or to the minority side caucus. Therefore, the bill before the House is proper. The report that was tabled upon my approval is available to every member. You may debate the bill and refer to the report. You may debate the bill without reference to the report. You may debate the bill without reference to any of the two. It's up to you. But the bill is before the House properly, and I now call the chair of the committee to move the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for your guidance. Mr. Speaker, I rise before you today with a sense of gratitude and appreciation for the opportunity to speak to this greatly esteemed August House. The Debate Committee on Finance and National Planning has fulfilled its mandate as outlined in Standing Order number 245 by examining and assessing the Finance Bill of 2024.
Chairman, start by moving the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the finance bill now be read a second time. Then you go on with your...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Finance Bill of 2024 be now read a second time.
Excellent. Now you can proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise before you today with a sense of gratitude and appreciation for the opportunity to speak to this greatly esteemed August House. The Debate Committee on Finance and National Planning has fulfilled its mandate as outlined in Standing Order 245 by examining and accessing the Finance Bill of 2024. Honorable Speaker, the procedure commenced with a comprehensive briefing on the bill's substance, followed by interactions with diverse stakeholders who share their viewpoints. Subsequently, the committee carefully deliberated upon the stakeholders' comments vis-a-vis the provisions of the bill. Honorable Speaker, I would like to greatly thank the members of the public, and especially the ones who appeared before the departmental committee as stakeholders, the members of the public that came for a public hearing at KISII and gave us very, very insightful views that has improved the report on the Finance Bill of 2024. Honorable Speaker, in a very special way, although these people breached the Data Protection Act by sharing our numbers to Kenyans, but also thank Kenyans that wrote to us through SMSs, that called us, and some of them, Honorable Speaker, were generous enough to send us 1 shilling and 2 shilling and 10 shillings to confirm whether our numbers were authentic. Honorable Speaker, I have written to the clerk wondering what to do with the 168,000 shillings that we sent to my M-Pesa, because receiving these gifts from members of the public, Honorable Speaker, is against the state, the laws of this republic. And therefore, later I will be seeking your guidance on what to do with the money, because I tried reversing the 1 shilling and the 2 shilling, and it was impossible, because it came in hundreds of thousands. But for your generosity, Kenyans, I want to thank you and tell you that your views are well received. Mr. Speaker, I would like to draw your attention to an important issue concerning Kenyans' tax revenue collection. Over the past decade, our tax revenue as a share of GDP has remained stagnant at approximately 15%. This stagnation is a cause for concern, and we as a country need to develop favorable tax measures to balance between relying on our own resource mobilization and depending on debt. Honorable Speaker, this bill proposes to raise a total of 346 billion shillings to support the expenditures that will better be passed by this House through the appropriations bill, Honorable Speaker. Notably, this expenditure is going to lead to the highest allocation ever to county governments at 401 billion shillings. This is the first time, Honorable Speaker, that this allocation to counties through equitable shares is exceeding the 400 billion shillings mark. Honorable Speaker, in as much as this House debates about raising revenue for this country, I want to encourage our members in our sister house, the Senate, and our county assemblies and our county governments to also prioritize ways of raising their own source revenue as county governments. Honorable Speaker, I would specifically want to laud Embu, Murang'a, and Nakuru counties that have exceeded their own source revenue share, because once counties are able to generate their own source revenue, it reduces the pressure that the national government has in collecting revenues to be sent to counties for conduction of county functions through the equitable share. Mr. Speaker, in comparison to African countries, tax revenue as a percent of GDP, such as Botswana, is at 24%, Mauritius at 18%, and Zambia at 17%. Kenya is lying behind with a tax revenue collection of 14.1% as of 2022. These countries have managed to achieve higher tax revenue collection rates, which highlights the need for us to reassess our tax policies and explore more effective measures that favor the business environment and enhance revenue collection. The Kenyan government has embarked on a tax reform agenda through the medium-term revenue strategies, MTRS, aiming to increase the tax to GDP ratio to 25% by 2030. This reform is crucial for aligning Kenya with its regional peers and ensuring sustainable economic growth through improved domestic resource mobilization. Honorable Speaker, the reason why there is increased debate on taxation in this country is because we have 20% of Kenyans contributing to 80% of our taxes. That means there is a need to have a robust expansion of our tax base and ensure that if everyone in these countries pays their equitable share of taxes, then we will not have to weigh this on the 20% that are paying 80% of our taxes in this country. Mr. Speaker, I would like to highlight a significant aspect of Kenya's economy over the past decade. We have witnessed the emergence of employment opportunities, especially around the digital marketplace. Significantly, this contributing to a significant economic evolution. Furthermore, the majority of jobs created during this period have been in the informal sector. As of 2022, approximately 83.3% of the 19.15 million Kenyans workers have been employed in the informal sector, reflecting the crucial role of the informal sector in our economy. This shows the importance of developing policies and strategies to support and regulate and support this vital segment. Mr. Speaker, the Finance Bill of 2024 had several tax proposals that will enable this country to increase its tax base, especially increasing its revenues. The committee carried out public participation and later deliberated the matters which inform our decisions. For instance, Clause 2 of the Finance Bill 2024 is expanding the definition of digital content monetization to include all creative work. The committee noted that not all creative works generate income. Therefore, and in order to align with international best practice, it is actually very necessary to specify that only those generating income are subject to tax. Clause 2, Honorable Speaker, is talking about the definition of software, which includes software and royalties in the definition of software and the definition of royalty. To safeguard the interests of distributors in this sector, the committee decided to delete this proviso and exclude the distribution of software from this definition. Honorable Speaker, there has been a notable change in the global arena in tax administration, where governments or parliaments change tax laws to align with court decisions. I think a case in point is the 7Cs case versus KRA in Kenya, where there was the contestation of the definition of royalties to include softwares. And the most popular one globally is the case of the engineering firm in India over the definition of softwares. We appreciate that in as much as it is improvement in our jurisprudence and improvement in our laws to make law process to align with the decisions of courts, we need to be careful not to abuse the power of law legislation to negate the judgments made by our courts. Clause 4, Honorable Speaker, proposes to reduce the period for claiming deferred realized foreign exchange losses from 5 years to 3 years. The committee supports retaining the current period, allowing businesses to recover foreign exchange losses over 5 years instead of the proposed 3 years, especially during these times of uncertainties in the global market, and especially including the de-dollarization of the markets. For example, we have seen some of our global leaders backing their currencies through gold and not through, for example, the most popular used currencies such as the US dollar. Clause 6B2, Honorable Speaker, proposes to exempt reimbursement of expenses incurred for asset purchasing during official duties by public officers, which was extensively discussed with stakeholders. The committee ultimately decided to remove this amendment that aimed to exclude public officers from taxation on employment of benefits received as reimbursements for asset acquisition. This decision was driven by concerns by members of the public that such exemption would unfairly discriminate against private sector employees and could potentially be abused. As framed on the bill, Honorable Speaker, there is no definition of what these assets are. And therefore, we stand a risk of having public officers buy houses or buy factories, and those factories or houses that they buy from taxpayers' money will not be subject to tax. So the best way would have been to treat the same for public officers, the same with private officers. But Honorable Speaker, if you allow private officers to be exempted from tax on payments made to them for assets, you might find officers being paid in terms of assets just for tax planning and tax avoidance. Clause 8, Honorable Speaker, proposes to repeal the digital service tax and its replacement with a significant economic presence tax at the rate of 30% on 20% deemed profit. This committee acknowledges that digital service providers typically enjoy a higher profit margin due to lower production costs compared to companies with physical presence. Therefore, the adjustment aims to align the deemed profit more closely with what would be expected in those companies if those companies face similar cost structures. This is a revenue enhancement measure to ensure that digital service providers pay their fair share of tax. Additionally, and notably, Honorable Speaker, the committee proposes amending this clause to include a gradual increase in the rate of from 1.5% to 3% and not from 1.5% to 6% as proposed in the bill. And this is to ensure there is fast implementation of this adjustment. Honorable Speaker, this has been one of the most confused clauses that has been to the members of the public. This tax is not on digital content creators. This tax is for these applications, for example, Uber Eats, Jumia, and the tax is imposed on the owners of the platform, not on the consumers or those people making those deliveries, Honorable Speaker. And this has been endorsed by the best practice through OECD countries to have a uniformity globally on taxation around the digital marketplace, Honorable Speaker. On clause 912G, There is the proposed introduction of minimum top-up tax. This committee strongly supports its measure, noting its global adoption in over 60 countries, where many of these key multinational companies operate. Failing to implement this tax in Kenya would undermine the fair application of tax obligations, potentially allowing constituent companies located in Kenya to underpay their share of revenues. This amendment is aligned to the multilateral instruments on profit shifting and base erosion that this House approved a month ago. Again, another very misinterpreted clause. The minimum top-up tax, to explain simply, means where a multinational company operates in Kenya and as a group company, and in the company of their origin, they have a lower tax rate than that of Kenya, then they will be required to pay this minimum top-up tax. And again, this is to align ourselves with best practice. Clause 9, 12H, proposes an introduction of motor vehicle tax at the rate of 2.5% of the value of the vehicle. With this clause, the committee knows the following. 1, Section 3.2 of the Income Tax Act defines what constitutes an income upon which a tax is chargeable under the Act, whereas the proposed motor tax is levied on an asset and not on income as described by the Income Tax Act. The proposal, Honorable Speaker, to cap the levy at 100,000 shillings makes this tax discriminatory and non-progressive, because this essentially means that those motor vehicles that have a value of 4 million shillings and below would have paid the fair tax of 2.5%. But those vehicles that have of higher value of 2.5% would have paid a less commensurate percentage of that motor vehicle tax. The proposal will have adverse effects on the insurance-taking behavior of motor vehicle owners and further lead to negative effects on the insurance sector. Honorable Speaker, notably also, commercial vehicles which are subject to advance tax and would therefore amount to double taxation. We noticed concerns from the members of the public, most especially commercial vehicles, take third-party insurance. Third-party insurance is a flat rate of 7,500 shillings. So if we impose 2.5% on a matatu that say is worth 4 million shillings, that means that the motor vehicle tax on that matatu would be 100,000 shillings. And considering that most of them struggle to even raise the 7,500 shillings comprehensive insurance, then that would be quite punitive and would actually even lead to them not taking the regular insurance for their motor vehicles. From the foregoing, the committee recommends therefore the deletion of the proposed motor vehicle tax. Honorable Speaker, on clause 10, the proposal to limit the deductibility of an employee's contributions to a post-retirement medical fund to 10,000 shillings. This committee recommends increasing actually the limit to 15,000 shillings. This is to encourage a saving culture for a post-retirement medical scheme. This is an improvement from our last year's amendment where we introduced the relief, and therefore we really urge this House to adopt this amendment. Honorable Speaker, you will note a concept called black tax, where the reason why a majority of Kenyans, especially middle-income earning Kenyans, are struggling, one of them is because they have to support their aging parents. Some of them really contributed their many years of public service to serving the people of this country. So we are therefore providing for an incentive for them that when you are actively in service, please save for your medical, post-retirement medical scheme. And you're saying, when you make this contribution to your post-retirement medical scheme, that contribution will be tax allowable to up to 15,000 shillings a month. And this will really help that when we grow old, the times when parents would rely on their children to support them when they are old, the times when children were seen as an investment needs to end. When someone reaches their age of 18 years, they should be allowed to drive by themselves and support themselves and the family by us during our active lives investing heavily on our retirement. This is not to mean that we don't support our parents, but just saying that let us, all of us who are working now, work hard to make sure that we put measures, such as this one, saving for our post-retirement medical scheme, so that we do not burden our children with our medical costs when you are old and not working. Clause 12, Honorable Speaker, proposes to introduce the advanced pricing agreement. This committee supports the proposal for an advanced pricing agreement, since it will enhance revenue determination in entities that belong to multinational groups or trade with related persons. Further, this will lead to allowing a seamless implementation of the agreements. The committee recommends enactment of regulations. And I need to emphasize this. The committee recommends Kenya Revenue Authority to enact regulations to address circumstances where KRA cancels advance payment agreements to allow the taxpayer the right to appeal, among other concerns. This proposal is also to align, Honorable Speaker, with our tax laws on international best practice and prevent profits shifting and base erosion. Clause 21D1, Clause 21DJ, Honorable Speaker. The committee endorses the bill's proposal to introduce withholding tax on interest from bonds, notes, or securities with a maturity of less than 3 years. This measure, Honorable Speaker, aims to promote long-term investment and ensure that government revenue from such payments is consistent with other forms of income. Clause 23, Honorable Speaker, proposes subjecting amateur supporting associations to taxation. This committee acknowledges that while the proposal aims to tax these associations, it recommends deleting the proposal to foster investment in the sector and to encourage the nurturing of sporting talent. This decision is intended to incentivize and support the management of youth talents through sporting activities. Honorable Speaker, we have seen, for example, the Talanta initiative. We've seen these athletic camps across the country. So this proposal to introduce taxation on this Talanta Hera initiative, all the athletic camps in this country, we are therefore saying, please, let us allow these sectors to drive, let us support talent, let us support our young people to make their money through talent, through these amateur supporting associations. Clause 25B1, Honorable Speaker, the committee retains the 15% preferential tax rate for the construction of 100 units of affordable housing. This incentive aims to encourage and stimulate investment in the affordable housing sector across the country. Clause 34A1, AA, and AB. The committee proposes to delete the proposed VAT on aircraft spare parts. This decision was considering that many airlines operators in the country provide maintenance and repair services to both international and domestic airlines. Implementing a tax on aircraft spare parts would increase the operational cost for airlines in Kenya, potentially undermining the country's competitiveness as a regional aviation hub. This amendment aims to support the growth in this emerging sector within our country. Clause 34-35, Honorable Speaker, this is about the provisions under the proposed amendment of the VAT Act. The committee adhered to several guidelines, including zero-rating only the most essential consumption items for household and for agricultural inputs, exempting inputs used in the manufacturing of medical services, safeguarding the financial sector by restricting VAT on services, taxing goods and services where only value is added in the production process, and exempting specific inputs to include local industries. Based on this principle, Honorable Speaker, the committee proposes to zero-rate items such as ordinary bread, unleavened bread, gluten-free bread, and inputs on raw materials for manufacturing agricultural and pest control products, agricultural pest control products themselves, and the transportation of sugarcane from farms to milling factories. And Honorable Speaker, the question has been asked, why sugarcane? Why not any other product? And I would like to tell Kenyans that out of all the agricultural products that we have in this country, the most bulky one in terms of weight is sugarcane. And therefore, the largest cost in the value addition on sugar is the transportation of sugarcane, Honorable Speaker. Additionally, the proposal is, we have proposed zero rating of locally assembled and manufactured mobile phones, among others. Honorable Speaker, this House made a decision last year to zero-rate local assembly of mobile phones. As a result, we have seen institutions such as the African Device Assemblers of Kenya assembling a total of 400,000 phones every month. They have created employment for over 1,000 Kenyans. We are now, in fact, Honorable Speaker, they cannot satisfy the demand on the supply of these phones in this country. We are telling Kenyans it is possible to manufacture our things here. We do not have to import these things from other countries. We can support our manufacturing and make sure that we consume and use only those products that are locally manufactured. The committee further recommends exempting several products from VAT, including the issuance of credit and debit cards, foreign exchange transactions, sanitary towels, diapers, and services to local film agents. Clause 39, Honorable Speaker, of the bill proposes the removal of provision granting relief on excess duty to manufacturers of accessible goods and providers of internet data services. The committee recognizes that excess duty, similar to VAT, considers input and output tax for manufacturing of accessible goods. Removing, therefore, Section 14 of the excess duty would prevent manufacturers from deducting excess duty, thereby potentially raising production costs and necessarily leading to higher prices to consumers. This deletion aims to safeguard Kenyans from increased prices of essential commodities. Honorable Speaker, it is East African community practice that excess duty on inputs become a tax allowable expense to manufacturers. And the risk of passing this Section 14 as proposed in the bill would mean that we would potentially make it cheaper for someone to go and manufacture in a different country and then import into this country duty-free. And therefore, this committee was very conscious on the need to protect our manufacturers and make sure we buy Kenya and build Kenya. Clause 39 proposes the removal of the provision granting relief on excess duty on accessible goods. I have explained that. Clause 42, Honorable Speaker, addresses excess duty on goods where the committee is guided by the following principal criteria: exempting goods from locally manufactured goods, exempting products to prevent increases in consumer prices, improving the administration of excess duty for ease. Based on this principle, therefore, the committee recommends the following: exempting vegetable oils, fertilized eggs, and clinker from excess duty. Honorable Speaker, I would like to explain what the difference is between these eggs. We have what we call table eggs. Table eggs is ready-to-eat eggs that we eat here at our restaurant or our homes. We have incubated eggs of what we call fertilized eggs. These are eggs that are ready to hatch. These are the ones that give us, for example, the one-day-old chicks. Honorable Speaker, as a poultry farmer myself, I attempted, when I was buying my one-day-old chicks, I was told that I needed to wait for 4 months before I got the one-day-old chicks, Honorable Speaker. This means that there is a great, the supply of fertilized eggs in this country is much lower than that of table eggs. However, we need to protect our eggs from imported eggs from other markets. Therefore, a few years ago, if you remember, Kenyans were eating eggs from Uganda at the expense of eggs that are laid by our own chicken here. It is plausible. It defeats any reason why we should allow an egg laid in a different country to land into a country at a cheaper price than eggs that are being made by our farmers here. So we have therefore introduced, Honorable Speaker, imposition of excess duty on imported table eggs, on imported onions, and on imported potatoes, so that we protect our onion, our poultry, and our potato farmers, especially in Molo and Nyandarua. Based on this criteria, Honorable Speaker, the proposal to exempt them from excess duty, vegetable oils, and fertilized eggs from incubation, amongst other things, is what we use under this consideration, Honorable Speaker. Further in, keeping with the tax system's predictability, the committee proposes to maintain the current rates on excess duty on imported motorcycle, plastic, onions, potatoes, among others. And again, I want to explain here that excess duty has been proposed only on imported, completely assembled motorcycles. We have had local capacity of our manufacturers assembling our own motorcycles. Let us ride motorcycles that are assembled in Kenya. When we export these jobs to China, when we import these completely locally assembled goods from China, it means three things. One, we are exporting our jobs to another country. Two, we are eroding our foreign exchange. Because once we do those importation of those goods, we have to use our dollars. And that is where it took us last year with the deterioration of our Kenya shillings going to as low as 167 shillings, Honorable Speaker. Three, we are certain of the quality of that particular product. Because you can go to that plant, you can go to that factory and ascertain the quality of those, Honorable Speaker. In addition to creating employment to our young men and women in this country. With this regards, Honorable Speaker, to excess duty in services, the committee was guided by the need to keep the consumer prices for certain services low and then to ensure stability in terms of the rate of excess duty. Based on these criteria, the committee proposes to maintain the prevailing rate on money transfer services by banks and financial institutions and money transfer services by several fund providers. Honorable Speaker, you've heard the popular Tuma na ya kutoa. So we want to make sure that that Tuma na ya kutoa is not increased so that we retain the current rates that is on our cellular mobile transfer services. Clause 44, Honorable Speaker, proposes an increase in the import declaration fee to highlight a reduction from 30.5% to 2.5% in the Finance Act of 2023. This resulted in a significant revenue loss of 10 billion shillings, impacting the implementation of 2023-24 budget. And this, therefore, Honorable Speaker, you have seen in a record 2 supplementary budgets that have led to a very huge cut on our expenditures. And this is because one of the decisions that we made was a reduction of IDF last year from 3.5 to 2.5% led to a revenue loss of 10 billion shillings. Honorable Speaker, clause 45 and 48 proposes the introduction of an eco-levy to mitigate environmental damage and pollution caused by imported finished products in Kenya. The committee emphasizes that this levy should exclusively apply to imported finished products, therefore safeguarding local manufacturers who are already adhering to what's called the extended producer principle. Regarding to a stakeholder feedback and to mitigate price impacts on essential goods, however, the committee recommends excluding motorcycles, bicycle tires, wheelchairs, 3-wheel motorized vehicles, which you probably know as tuk-tuks and wheelbarrows, from this levy. Additionally, the committee proposes reducing the eco-levy for select finished goods. These adjustments are intended to balance environmental protection with consumer affordability and local manufacturing interests, Honorable Speaker. Especially on the area of e-waste, Honorable Speaker. Whatever products, these products, when you import them, when you import that phone, one day that phone will die ultimately. So we are saying, let us have a fund through the restoration fund which provides resources to ensure at the end of the life of that product, there is money that is used to restore, to either reuse, recycle, or restore the impact of that product to the economy, Honorable Speaker. And for example, how that fund is already working. Now, if you are doing mineral exploration in this country, and you go and dig up when you're doing your quarry or your mineral exploration, you are required to pay a bond so that when now you finish your exploration, there is money to restore that land to its original state, either, for example, by converting it into a dam or filling it up. So this is similar to that. And you've seen this work in other countries, where when at the end of use of a phone or a computer, those phones are taken, those computers are taken, and they are either used or recycled, Honorable Speaker. And it's also important to mention that the responsibility of the payment of this eco levy is not on the consumer. It is on the manufacturer in that country of origin. And this, again, is in line with best practice. It has been introduced in Tanzania, it has been introduced in several countries, and most of these larger manufacturers are more than willing to pay this eco levy to make sure that the products that they produce at the end of the life of that product, they're able to be collected, to be reused or recycled to prevent the eroding of our environment, Honorable Speaker. Clause 47 introduces the export and investment protection levy to address declining exports and increase imports, especially for local manufactured goods. The company's objective is to safeguard the local manufacturing sector against unfair trade practices, ensure enhance its competitiveness, and foster a sustainable and inclusive export environment. The Export and Investment Promotion Levy is expected to have several impacts on the manufacturing sector. One, it will support local manufacturing, aiming to increase the sector's contribution to GDP from 7% to 20% by 2027, seeking to level the playing field for local manufacturers struggling against cheaper imports, reducing over-reliance on foreign goods and services. And this levy will generate revenue to facilitate the development of the manufacturing sector and incentivize investments by local, micro, small, and medium enterprises. Based on this goals, Honorable Speaker, the committee proposes imposing the Export and Investment Promotion Levy on articles such as leather products and imported footwear, denatured ethyl alcohol, ceramic sinks, and wash basins, among others. Additionally, the committee supports stakeholders' proposal to exempt craft liner, uncoated craft paper, and ballast from the levy. Regarding the motorcycles, Honorable Speaker, the committee suggests implying the levy only, again, on fully built imported motorcycles. This measure aims to design a proper and promote local manufacturing, enhance competitiveness, and support sustainable economic growth in our great beloved country, Kenya. Clause 51 and Clause 57 proposes the integration of electronic tax system, ETIMS, with data management and reporting system. The committee acknowledges the implementation challenges on ETIMS, especially on our small-scale farmers, or subsistence farmers, and microfinances. Therefore, our report proposes that we exempt those farmers and those small businesses with a turnover less than 1 million shillings from this registration, and impose that responsibility on the traders, so that they use what in tax terms they call reverse invoicing. To address this issue, Honorable Speaker, the committee is guided by the international jurisprudence process called de minimis non current lex. In terms of the law does not concern itself with trifles. The law should not concern itself with trivial matters that will hinder even tax administration. And this, Honorable Speaker, is why we are proposing exemption of subsistence farmers and micro enterprises with a gross turnover of below 1 million shillings from this requirement. This exemption aims to facilitate their participation in the form of business transactions without the burden of electronic invoicing requirements. Furthermore, Honorable Speaker, the committee suggests to KRA to ensure guidelines on this operationalization is addressed effectively. These guidelines would provide clarity and ensure smooth implementation while supporting the integration of small-scale farmers and micro enterprises into the formal economy. Clause 56, Honorable Speaker, addresses the issue of agency notices. This is aimed to resolve ambiguities regarding their validity. The committee recognizes the necessity to provide a mechanism to lift agency notices in Kenya where taxes have been fully paid pursuant to a court order. This provision seeks to ensure clarity and fairness in tax enforcement practices, allowing the timely removal of agency notices once obligation has been met through a judicial process. By establishing clear guidelines, Honorable Speaker, for lifting agency notices under these circumstances, the proposal aims to uphold legal compliance while safeguarding Kenya's rights and maintaining the integrity of our tax administration. Clause 61 proposes the removal of restrictions that require owners of affordable housing units to obtain prior written consent from the Affordable Housing Board before selling their units. The committee supports this amendment, citing the concerns from the public that this provision on the Affordable Housing Act infringes on the constitutional right to property. By advocating for the removal of this requirement, the committee seeks to uphold property rights and ensure that homeowners have the freedom to manage and dispose their affordable housing units without unnecessary bureaucratic handles. Clause 63 proposes granting KRA access to personal data. The committee has raised concerns that this proposal does not meet the constitutional threshold outlined in Articles 31C and D of the Constitution of Kenya. Additionally, the committee notes that Section 51 of the Data Protection Act specifies conditions under which exemptions might be applicable. Moreover, Honorable Speaker, Section 60 of the Tax Procedures Act empowers the commissioner or authorized officers with a warrant to access any necessary data for administering tax laws. These considerations, therefore, shows the need for careful alignment with constitutional and legal provisions regarding privacy and data protection in implementing this proposal. The decline in levy collection, Speaker, continues to impact on highways, urban and rural roads. Recent heavy rains and flooding like El Nino have again further damaged our roads, and therefore they need to provide more resources, Honorable Speaker, through the appropriations to ensure that we have sufficient resources on the repair of our roads, and especially the low-volume seal roads. Mr. Speaker, exploring innovative approaches such as targeted initiatives, simplified tax processes, and enhanced taxpayer education can encourage voluntary compliance and broaden participation in the formal tax system. Bringing more Kenyans into the taxpayer fold, we align our tax revenue collection with economic expansion, enabling us to finance crucial investments in infrastructure, social programs, and sustainable development. Mr. Speaker, addressing these issues proactively and maintaining effective tax policies, we strive to increase our tax revenue collection in line with our economic potential. This, Honorable Speaker, will strengthen our fiscal position, allowing for investment in key sectors such as social welfare programs and infrastructure development, fostering sustainable economic growth to benefit all Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, as we deliberate the Finance Bill of 2024, it is important to actually prioritize measures that will effectively expand our tax base and ensure revenue generation. This may involve innovative tax policy approaches such as incentivizing compliance, simplifying tax procedures, and overcoming barriers that hinder our revenue growth. Honorable Speaker, there are other two proposals that are very critical in this economy. One of them is the amendment on excise duty on cigarettes, where we were applying preferential rates per centiliter to filtered and unfiltered cigarettes. Honorable Speaker, we witnessed heartbreaking confessions of victims of throat cancer after 25 years of smoking. And this is because we're saying they started with the unfiltered cigarettes, then went to the filtered cigarette and spoke for 25 years. And as a result, Honorable Speaker, there has been demonstration globally that there is a direct relationship between cigarette smoking and many forms of cancer, especially throat and lung cancer. It has been demonstrated globally that changing tax regime or changing taxation on cigarettes actually impact the consumption of those services and has a subsequent impact on reduction of cancer cases. Honorable Speaker, on alcoholic beverages, Honorable Speaker, the proposed amendment to shift from taxation by volume to taxation by alcohol content is also a great welcome a policy idea and aligns with best practice global, Honorable Speaker. This means that alcoholic drinks that have higher alcohol content will have a higher excise duty than those alcoholic drinks that have lower alcohol content. This, Honorable Speaker, will not just make higher content alcohol more expensive, but most importantly, in the fight against illicit brews, ensure there is safer alcohol available to those that want to take alcohol. Because, Honorable Speaker, we have accepted as a country there are those that want to take and there are those that don't want to take. So those that want to take need to be given access to safe and affordable and healthy, and make sure that those others that do illicit, Honorable Speaker, are discouraged. As we robustly, Honorable Speaker, engage on the Convention about the Finance Bill and critique it, it must be realized that this bill aims to correct around 346 billion shillings only from a proposed 3.9 trillion shillings. We therefore request this House, our departmental committees and our oversight committees and Kenyans in the public to interrogate the expenditure side of this budget as they are interrogating the financing side. This, Honorable Speaker, will lead to a more robust budget-making process, reduce or prevent budgeted corruption, maintain fiscal discipline in the use of our resources by our executive, Honorable Speaker. Because one of the credit cases we face, Honorable Speaker, is the trust deficit on what this will be used. And this House, in our oversight roles, can do a great job in reducing that trust deficit, in ensuring that the taxes paid by hand-earned Kenyans are spent correctly for the success, for the prosperity of the great public of the Republic of Kenya. Without Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
You beg to move.
Without Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
And who is seconding you?
Honorable Speaker, I request my very able Vice Chair, CPA Ambassador Benjamin Nangat, the MP for the great people of Ainamoi in Kericho County, to second.
Benja.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this finance bill of 2024. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking your office, the office of the clerk, and the staff, our secretariat, Mr. Speaker, and our members for the good job and the good support that you accorded our committee. Mr. Speaker, this finance bill is one of the most canvassed finance bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we did organize the public participation exercise, Mr. Speaker, which went all through for almost 10 days, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during that exercise, we informed Kenyans that the finance bill of 2020, the public participation exercise, which we were doing, Mr. Speaker, was not a public relations exercise, Mr. Speaker. It was a very serious exercise, Mr. Speaker. And I want to inform the public and Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, that we heard them. We have included their views in our recommendations, Mr. Speaker, which was tabled yesterday by the chairman, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank our members because Mr. Speaker, we sat sometimes late into the night, Mr. Speaker, and I can say, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as a committee comprising both sides of the House, Mr. Speaker, we were 99.9 unanimous, Mr. Speaker, in our deliberations, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this House has already passed the budget estimates of 24-25, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, any member who voted for the budget estimate of 2024, because budget estimates are funded by the finance bill of 2024. So all of us, if we have supported the budget estimate of 2024, Mr. Speaker, we should rise to the occasion and support the finance bill of 2024. Mr. Speaker, when we went to the elections, we were given the terms of reference. One of them, Mr. Speaker, is we must stop borrowing. We must stop borrowing, Mr. Speaker. And to stop borrowing, Mr. Speaker, we must be able to generate our own revenue. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, even as we talk about protecting the Kenyans, which we have done, Mr. Speaker, we must also help our country to raise revenue so that we stop the shame of borrowing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say, as I've said, the committee listened to the public participation exercise, and we have incorporated all the negative items, Mr. Speaker, which were in the bill. We have removed all of them, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this House should unanimously support and vote for the bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to go to the specific issues which were mentioned in the bill. And this bill, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, Kenyans should note that the bill which was tabled in the House were proposals, Mr. Speaker. This House has the power to amend, to change. I could rather say, Mr. Speaker, those proposals, we can amend everything, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Kenyans should not fear. We are here to protect Kenyans. We are here to protect the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about specific clauses. Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes to amend Income Tax Act, Mr. Speaker, the VAT Act, Mr. Speaker, the Excise Duty Act, Mr. Speaker, and also the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act, Mr. Speaker. On a more specific issues, Mr. Speaker, the bill proposes to introduce what we call the significant presence tax, Mr. Speaker, which actually targets all the international organizations that are doing business within our country, mainly on online systems, Mr. Speaker. They are making money, they are getting money to their country, but they are getting less, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we must make sure that everyone who does business in the country contributes to our economy, contributes to our tax income, Mr. Speaker, and therefore the committee supports the introduction of what we call the significant tax presence system, Mr. Speaker, so that we make sure we tax everyone who's doing business in our country and contribute to our economy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the law as established now gives our companies 5 years to recover their tax, what we call the tax foreign exchange losses, Mr. Speaker. The bill proposes to reduce that provision from 5 years to 3 years, Mr. Speaker. When we consider the opinions of the public, Mr. Speaker, we did agree, and we will be moving the necessary amendments that, Mr. Speaker, we must maintain the status quo, meaning that we did not agree that we should reduce it. It is good for the public, for our companies, Mr. Speaker, to be given sufficient time to recover their losses, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we shall be introducing recommendations to delete that section, Mr. Speaker, which was proposing to reduce recovery of foreign losses, exchange losses, from 5 years to 3 years. Mr. Speaker, the income tax, the bill proposes to introduce what we call motor vehicle tax, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say this was the most contested section of the bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every presenter who came to the committee, they were opposed. Mr. Speaker, when we read the Income Tax Act, I think clause 3, Mr. Speaker, says income tax will be charged on income of individuals and companies, Mr. Speaker. We tried to check whether this tax called motor vehicle tax, Mr. Speaker, fits into the income tax definition, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, our honest opinion, Mr. Speaker, was that, one, it was misplaced, because a motor vehicle tax is like it's not even an income, it's like an asset tax, Mr. Speaker. So if we tax your asset today, your car, tomorrow we'll introduce what we call land tax. Tomorrow we'll introduce what we call house tax, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, we should remain within the law. And therefore we conclude that these taxes are not fit into the definition of income, and therefore the committee was unanimous in recommending that we must remove this tax, Mr. Speaker. And it was going to make Kenyans suffer, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, the Kenyans who told us about the motor vehicle tax, I want to inform you that we listen to you, and we are going to remove it, Mr. Speaker, so that we reduce the cost of living in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, those people are relying on this section to make sure that to talk about the finance bill in the Parliament, Mr. Speaker. We have recommended removal. So people must relax, Mr. Speaker. We are removing it. Kenyans must should relax, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the bill under Income Tax Act proposal also proposes to introduce what we call advance pricing agreement between the KRA and the multinational, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, multinationals operate a very complex financial system, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes they want to do what we call the tax planning, Mr. Speaker, so that as a country we lose finally. But, Mr. Speaker, we want to make sure that everyone contributes their fair share of tax. And therefore, we support what we call the advanced pricing agreement for enhancement of revenues for multinational entities, Mr. Speaker, so that they contribute their fair share of tax, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes to increase the non-taxable amount of pensions, Mr. Speaker, from 20,000 per month, Mr. Speaker, to 30,000 per month, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, all the Kenyans who are retired, Mr. Speaker, they must be cushioned, Mr. Speaker. They have supported the country for well over 60 years, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, you don't tax somebody up to their retirement. We are proposing that we make sure we cushion them, Mr. Speaker, so that the amount that we are recommending that we increase the tax deductible amount from 20,000 to 30,000, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
Your time is up, Benja. 1 minute to wind up.
1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I've given you 1 minute.
Okay.
Finish up.
Mr. Speaker, on eco levy, Mr. Speaker, the committee was of the view that we must protect the local manufacturers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the bill proposes to have what you call eco levy to protect the environment from both local manufacturers and imported goods, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we were unanimous in saying that we have to support our manufacturers. We only levy the eco levy on the finished manufactured goods, Mr. Speaker. Our local manufacturers, we have what we call Mr. Speaker, our local manufacturers, Mr. Speaker, have arrangements to protect the environment which have been agreed with NEMA, Mr. Speaker. So the levy will only be on foreign finished products, and Mr. Speaker, those goods which we cannot manufacture in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I second and I support. I ask the
Honorable members, take your seats. Order, take your seats. Honorable Cheng. Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2024, be now read a second time. Opio and I. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, given the importance of this finance bill, and many Kenyans are following us, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, to distinguish between the facts and the fictions which are being given out there by this Honorable House. Mr. Speaker, I want to seek your indulgence that we have every member speak for 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes, Honorable Speaker, so that we can have all of us contribute. Honorable Speaker, thank you.
According to a motion we passed at the beginning of this session, the mover of this bill has 45 minutes, which he expended. The seconder, 15. Majority leader and minority leader, 15. Each member speaking has 10 minutes. Now, Bowen is suggesting that you reduce it to 5. Order. Is Bowen's proposal supported? Let's start with 10. Let's start with what you passed. As usual, my screen is full. Order. We already have 10, so nobody needs to propose 10. 5 is what is proposing. Do we go with 5 or 10? Okay. It's not quite clear. Let's start with 10 and see how far it goes. Robert Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we were all elected, we took oath of office to defend the Constitution 2010. The spirit of Article 1 and Article 95 of the Constitution.
Order, honorable members, order. The matter of 10 or 5 minutes is now moot. We will see how to revisit it later. And those of you who are given a chance to speak, if you exhaust your points before you end the 10 minutes, you can yield the floor so that somebody else can be able to get the opportunity. Go on, Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So in the spirit of Article 95 and Article 1, I stand to represent the more than 50 million Kenyans who have asked this House to reject this insensitive, punitive, ill-advised piece of legislative mistake. Mr. Speaker, I say this because in the 10 years that the former President Uhuru was president of this country, we had finance bills every year. But it's only one that had very serious contention, and the only contention that was there was the increase of VAT, in fact, the introduction of VAT on fuel of 8%. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Kwanza regime has been in office. This is less than 2 years. And the second finance bill they have brought to this House and the first one have elicited so much contention from Kenyans that I think there is something seriously wrong. Mr. Speaker, in fact, let me say this, that the controversies of the 2023 finance bill, before we even get to this one, even, in fact, got a nickname for our head of state, because Kenyans out there are calling him Zakayo, the tax collector. Mr. Speaker, we must move from that concept of ensuring that every year we impose punitive taxes on Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans have not even recovered from the negative effects of the 2023 finance bill. Because, Mr. Speaker, the 2023 finance bill already drastically reduced the disposable income of Kenyans. Because, Mr. Speaker, we increased pay as you earn then, we went and increased the NSSF, we went and increased the NHIF. Now we are proposing to go to SHIF, which is even higher. Mr. Speaker, we introduced a housing fund. Mr. Speaker, it has been very, very painful for Kenyans. And Kenyans were hoping that this year things will be better, considering that in the last election campaign, Mr. Speaker, they were told that there will be pesa mfukoni, which means money in the pockets. Mr. Speaker, what we are realizing is that actually what this regime wanted was not to put money in anyone's pocket, but to take any money that was in the pockets of Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the cost of government services have gone so high that we can't even afford our children to have ID cards. So, Mr. Speaker, when I look at a bill that proposes to increase the already overburdened Kenyans, it is something that we have to stand firm and reject. Mr. Speaker, let me say this, that we were told to tighten our belts. And I know this is the intention, that we be hit very hard the first 2, 3, 4 years. But Mr. Speaker, you know, some people will lose their life because of the hunger now and because of the stress now. What do you do with them when they are 6 feet under in 2026, 2027? We are told to tighten our belts. And as we tighten our belts, Mr. Speaker, it is shocking to see the excesses that this government is going through. We are taxing Kenyans to raise money to run the government, and yet we have excesses. We are putting in money to build houses, to repair, to paint houses, that were built with 400 million and we are spending 600 million to renovate and paint. Mr. Speaker, it is very, very painful. And then we are told, tighten your belts as Kenyans. And 200 million Kenyan shillings is used on a return trip on a chartered plane to the US. Mr. Speaker, this is not acceptable. And all those missions are begging missions. When what we are doing here is we are living beyond our means. Mr. Speaker, I seek the attention of all those members that passed the 2023 finance bill and later on went and told Kenyans they didn't have time to read it. Now listen keenly. If you didn't read that one, you listen to us. Mr. Speaker, oppressive tax policies do not make good economic sense. And Mr. Speaker, let me just put it this way, that the last year's proposal was intending to raise 214 billion. But because it was oppressive, Kenyans did not pay as expected. And in fact, what we collected was only 131 billion out of that finance bill, which was only 53% of the target. Mr. Speaker, the more you put, the more burden you put on people, the more likely that they are going to look for ways to avoid that tax. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to be careful. We warned that would happen, that people would evade. You didn't listen. We warned that it would lead to job losses. Many companies left this country and are now producing elsewhere, and unemployment has gone up. We warned that the tax increase is always passed to the common man. Mr. Speaker, the hustler of this country, the mamamboga, the boda, is the one that will carry the burden. Anytime taxes go up, it is not the big fish that actually pay these taxes. Because all they do, when you increase cost of fuel, all they do is pass it on to the consumer. And the consumer is mamamboga. The consumer is the last man in the chain. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to be very careful. Now, the 2024 tax proposals are as oppressive as 2023. We have not even fully implemented the 2023 ones. The E-teams, now we are discussing how we are going to remove it. There are those, those taxes on chamas that we have not yet implemented. Now we have brought other major proposals. And I hear, Mr. Speaker, talk of the tax proposals of 2023, it's like they have been reduced. Mr. Speaker, the bill that we hold in our hands, the bill that we read, has not been amended. What we are listening to is stories, Mr. Speaker. Because when we go to the committee of the whole house, what guarantee do we have that the proposals we've been told about here will pass? We can be hoodwinked into believing that those things will be passed, and when we pass this bill, the last minute it is opposed and we lose out. So we are going to oppose it from the beginning up to the end. Mr. Speaker, this proposal on VAT on bread, Mr. Speaker, I don't even know who could conceive such a thing. You have put your hands in the pockets of salaried Kenyans, business people. People have been made to pay for profits that they don't even make on turnover tax. And now you want to tax our children because you are putting your hands in the pockets of our children. Because the biggest consumer of bread are our children in secondary school, because that's where they spend their pocket money. Mr. Speaker, some of these are totally ill-advised. Mr. Speaker, VAT on financial services, VAT on money transfer, VAT on M-Pesa. Those were, I do not understand who was thinking, what were they drinking, what were they smoking when they came up with those ideas. Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate. 20%, 25% excise duty on edible oil, import duty. Mr. Speaker, these things, 2.5% on motor vehicles. These ideas were preposterous. But Mr. Speaker, I believe that all those proposals were actually a smokescreen. If you read the 48 laws of power, you know, smokescreen. You lead them down the wrong direction until they lose focus. What has happened is that we have concentrated on those ones that were very clear. But the real intention was to do what this committee has proposed. That suddenly, after we think that things are okay, they increase RMD, road maintenance levy, road development levy, and the import duty. That is what the intention was. In fact, the net effect is likely to be that this finance bill may be collecting almost as much, if not more, than the previous proposal. So, Mr. Speaker, I stand in solidarity with those Kenyans that said that this must be rejected in totality. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Inspector General to stop interfering with Kenyans when they are exercising their democratic right of picketing, because Kenyans have a right to defend themselves. When they see the constitution being mutilated, when they see their pockets being ravaged, when they see their children being unable to go to school, to put food on the table, they have every right to defend themselves. Inspector General, can you concentrate on defending the country and stop interfering with Kenyans? And this revolution, which is unfortunately a kindly revolution, Mr. Speaker, it is unstoppable. Because when we were in the streets, you could call Raila Amolo Odinga, you could call Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka and ask them to tell the troops to go back. Who do you call when you pass this bill? So I reject and I vote, I reject. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. That order, Owen Bayer.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, coming to speak on the finance bill on the heels of my counterpart from the minority is interesting because I tried to get at least something from Honorable Mbui that he was saying that was useful and a contribution to the finance bill, but I couldn't get any. I just heard him shout about Maandamano and all that. But we forgive him. We forgive him. Forgive him. I want to start by saying this, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the finance bill is one of the very important documents that comes to Parliament. It is part of the budget cycle. That somehow, as we go through the budget cycle, our finance bill will come to the House, Honorable Speaker. We have the opportunity now to look at Finance Bill 2024. Honorable Speaker, a finance bill is usually a document of revenue-raising measures. But this finance bill must be looked together with the budget statement and the budget that we passed in this House. The finance bill complements the budget that we passed in this House, Honorable Speaker. That we have to raise revenue, resources, that we can finance the budget. So these two documents must be looked together, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when we received the budget, the finance bill in this House, we tabled it here. But it was a proposal from Treasury. And when a proposal comes to the House, Honorable Speaker, it needs to be debated. They cannot pass the way it has been brought. It is scrutinized by the House. And the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, gave us the opportunity to do public participation. And public participation, Honorable Speaker, is a key plank in passing laws and legislation in this House. Treasury makes wild proposals that comes to the House. But it is up to this House to sit down, debate those proposals, look at them, and see whether they are fair revenue-raising measures for the country. Honorable Speaker, we have had a thorough public participation, one which Kenyans spoke their feelings about the finance bill. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans talked to the committee. Kenyans raised their voices about contentious issues in the finance bill. And those issues were captured by the committee, a committee that includes members from the minority and also includes members from the majority. And Kenyans had, the committee had, and they made changes to the finance bill. Honorable Speaker, the House itself has, in third reading, the power to make amendments to the proposals that came from the Treasury. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, at this time to say that we reject the finance bill in total is to reject the mandate that you are given by the people. The people gave you mandate to debate here, approve or not approve, and that is the process that we are undertaking, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the budget created a deficit And in dealing with a deficit for a budget, there are three ways you can look at: reduce the budget, borrow, or tax. Those are the three things that you need to do when you're dealing with a budget for you to finance a budget. You either borrow, you either reduce the budget, or you tax to be able to finance a budget. All these measures are available to this House, Honorable Speaker, to make a decision on how we go forward. But Honorable Speaker, allow me also to say, did the committee listen? Yes, the committee listened on the proposals that were brought from Treasury. And Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that the proposals that were made, the proposals that we had from the Treasury, did not go unchanged by the committee, Honorable Speaker. And I would like, Honorable Speaker, to just note a few things. The proposal on 16% VAT on bread was dropped. And there's a proposal in the report that be dropped. That is a win for Kenyans, Honorable Speaker, that now we will not have the 16% raise on bread in the finance bill. That has been dropped, and Kenyans are safe. They can have bread, and Mui and the children in school can have bread at less than the proposal of 16%. Honorable Speaker, we had noise about the motor tax, 2.5. Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that the committee listened, and when the committee listened, they dropped the 2.5 on motor vehicle because the committee listened, and now Kenyans do not have to pay that motor tax. Honorable Speaker, the eco tax that had been proposed by Treasury, the committee looked at it, studied it, and said we can only levy eco a tax on imported finished products. But for products that are manufactured in this country, they will not attract the eco tax that had been proposed by Treasury. Honorable Speaker, that is a win for Kenyans, which we might celebrate as a House because the committee listened. Honorable Speaker, there was a lot of taxation on the payslip, and the people who had loans were even suffering. But what has this committee done in terms of those things? They have reorganized the taxation within a payslip, and now there'll be more money on people's pockets from their payslip because the committee listened, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are many gains in this report, not on the finance bill, but on the report of the committee, which is what will eventually go into making the Finance Act. So, Honorable Speaker, as we move forward, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sure many other people will look at the many issues that Kenyans have gained, but I also want to look at the budget, Honorable Speaker. Today, members of this House, CDF, will have more money than before because it was proposed in the budget and it is going to be financed in this finance bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Opio and I here celebrated the other day that political parties' money has actually been returned into the budget. And he was very ecstatic that there is money for political parties. But I asked him that question, but that money must come from somewhere. That money has to come from the finance bill, which will finance the money in the political parties. Honorable Speaker, the women.
What's the point of order, Minority Leader?
You know, Honorable Owen Baya was doing fairly well until he mentioned my name in respect of political parties fund. Honorable Speaker, you know, political parties fund is not a favor to anybody or to any political party. And as a matter of fact, the threshold set out in the law has not been met in this regime. And therefore, I want to ask you, Honorable Speaker, to compel Honorable Baya to withdraw those very unfortunate remarks and apologize profusely, not only to me, but to the House and Kenyans in general. Thank you.
Owen.
Thank you very much. It is very true that the budget has money for political parties. And that money will come from a source. And that source is the finance bill. So, Honorable Speaker, I am still within my limits of speech. Honorable Speaker, I also want to say this. We have a budget that we must finance. We have a budget that we must get money to ensure resources go to Kenyans, that services go to Kenyans, that development go to Kenyans, that we have to pay debt, the 1.0 something trillion of servicing the debt. We have to have money to do that. And one way is to raise money through the finance bill. Honorable Speaker, we have to make hard decisions for a country in order to make it forward. But if we want to be good people, Honorable Speaker, I read somewhere that if you want to be a good person, please go and sell ice cream. But if you want to be a leader, you have to be here and make hard decisions.
Your time is up. Your time is up. You must make the hard decision to sit down. Honorable members, before I give the next member, allow me to acknowledge 2 schools in the public gallery. Kibrisha Boys Secondary School from Bori, Meru, and Tiga High School from Mara, Tarakaniti. On your behalf and on behalf of myself, we welcome them to the House of Parliament. Mama Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kuchangia mswada huu wa Finance Bill 2024. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wameamka, na mimi nataka niwaambie wenzangu ambao wako kwenye serikali.
And honorable members, as Zamzam speaks, seeing the screen, I may be persuaded to go to 5 minutes, but let's see how we go.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mimi nataka niwaambie wenzangu kuwa Wakenya wameamka. Mheshimiwa Spika, ile budget ama hii finance bill ilivyowekwa Mheshimiwa Spika, kuja kuweka mkate, edible oils na vitu ambavyo vinamgusa kama vile magari, Mheshimiwa Spika, ile ilikuwa ni strategy ya kuweza kuwaondoa Kenya katika ile shetani kubwa ambayo imebaki ndani ya hii bill. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wamemakinika, ukiwaona wanaingia barabarani wenyewe bila baba, jua kuna shida. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka niseme hivi, 2023 finance bill, sisi tunasema hapa kuwa Wakenya wamesikizwa maamuzi yao, wamesikizwa kauli zao kwenye kuchangia katika huu mswada. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini ikumbukwe kuwa, ifahamike kuwa 2023 finance bill Wakenya walikataa kabisa housing levy, lakini ililazimishwa kwao. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo tusije kudanganywa kuwa kuna vitu vilivyoko humu ndani ya bill kuwa Wakenya wamekubali. Mheshimiwa Spika, sijui yule aliyokuwa akipanga mambo ya mkate alikuwa anafikiria kitu gani Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini mimi nitasema hivi, naangalia ile pesa ambayo inaweza kukusanywa, ambayo imekadiriwa kukusanywa, naangalia na matumizi yake. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wamefinywa. Na mimi nataka niwaambie, hata paka ukimpiga paka ukamfungia ndani ya nyumba, paka atakung'ata. Imefika wakati sasa Wakenya wanaanza kutufuata sisi na messages zinatumiwa mpaka rais. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii Kenya watu wameamka Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi nataka niwaambieni, tutacheka leo, wengine wanasikia raha, wengine mmetumwa mpige yes, lakini kumbukeni hii bill ambayo mnaifanya saizi si yenu tu, itashika vizazi vijazo. Itafika wakati wewe hauko bungeni, itafika wakati wewe mtoto wako, mama yako, ndugu yako hana njia, hana uwezo, itamfinya. Kwa hiyo tukitunga sheria sisi tunaangalia sheria, tunatunga sheria ya kuweza kusaidia ama ni sheria ya kuweza kumvunja Mkenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, naangalia bajeti ambayo imewekwa katika ofisi ya rais. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia State House imewekwa karibu bilioni 8, 7.9 billion. Ukiangalia Office of the President imewekwa 4.5 billion. Ukiangalia ofisi ya naibu wa rais imewekwa 4.5 billion. Haya matumizi hayajaonyesha yanaenda kufanya kitu gani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Wakati ambapo pesa ambazo zinakwenda kwa mwananchi unapata amewekewa pesa duni kabisa. Ukiangalia upande wa health, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanaingiza na mkono huu wanatoa 16% kwa cancer patients. Sisi tunataka kupigana na saratani. Kina mama wanaugua saratani, watu wa maskini ambao hawajiwezi, huu ugonjwa umewafikia. Ikiwa sisi tunaongeza mpaka kwa magonjwa, tunaongeza tax, tuna tax ugonjwa wa Kenya, wabunge wenzangu, tunaelekeza wapi taifa hili? Pale ndani ya State House, mkate peke yake na maziwa na nini, ile bilioni 13 mimi naiangalia nasema, jamani tuoneni haya. Mgala muweni, haki yake mpeni. Huyu ambaye tunamnyang'anya hizi pesa kwenda kufund vitu vya starehe ni mtu ambaye analia kwa Mungu kila siku asubuhi akiamka, Mwenyezi Mungu, natoka ndani ya nyumba yangu nishukishie riziki kwa mikono yangu niweze kulea watoto wangu. Lakini sisi katika ile ruzuku yake tunaenda kukata. Kwa mfano, Mkenya anatoka nyumbani, mshahara wake ni 50,000, Mheshimiwa Spika. Katika 50,000, Mheshimiwa Spika, 24,000 yote inakatwa na serikali, Mheshimiwa Spika. Hapo hiyo ni katika tax peke yake. Mara hii pay as you earn, sijui nini, kisha anabaki na 29,000. 29,000 kiangalia, Mheshimiwa Spika, ana stima ataka kulipa, ana maji ataka kulipa, ataka kununua unga, ataka kupeleka mtoto shule. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wamechoka. Wakenya wamechoka.
There's a point of order from the committee chairman.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Nimesikia rafiki yangu Mheshimiwa mbunge wa Mombasa akisema kwamba kuna kodi ambayo imewekwa kwa wagonjwa wa saratani. Ningetaka kwamba nieleze ni kipengele kipi katika huu mswada ambao unaongea kuhusu hiyo, kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, haya mambo ya kumisinform ama kuwadanganya wa Kenya kwa mambo kama hayo kwa sababu ya siasa kabisa ni makosa na haifai kufanyika.
Mama Zamzam, that is a fair challenge. Order.
Ngoja.
Order. That's a fair challenge. Can you point out which...
Ngoja nipe nafasi Mheshimiwa Spika, nitaiangalia kisha kipengee mahali kiko. Lakini kiko, Mheshimiwa Spika, nipigieni kelele, mimi sijali, nitawaambieni ukweli. Wakenya wanahangaika, mmekuja hapa, mmelipwa pesa, mmepewa pesa nyingi kuja kuwa Wakenya katika bunge hili.
Order. Order, honorable members, order. Order, Mama Zamzam. Order, Honorable Zamzam. Order. Honorable Zamzam. Order, KJ. Order, members. We were doing so well in terms of decorum and production from members until we reached here. Mama Zamzam, order, standing order 91. Every member is responsible for the accuracy of any facts which you allege. And the speaker doesn't get involved in your allegations until you are challenged. When a colleague challenges you, the easy thing is not to raise your voice. The easy thing is to say, this is found in clause this and that of the bill. And it ends there. That is how you discharge your responsibility. If it is not in the bill, then the challenge becomes legitimate, and the decent thing to do is to withdraw and move on with your other contributions. Order, the Speaker needs no assistance, Honorable Kamket. Honorable Zamzam, if it is in the bill, point out to the chair of the committee. If it isn't, just withdraw and move on with your other contributions. Order. We are going to have orderly debate. Mama Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Nafikiri nimechanganyikiwa na ile import duty na hii ya hospitali. Mimi nataka niwaambie kitu moja.
Honorable Zamzam.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nimekubali.
Kama haiko uiondoe alafu uendelee.
Haiko Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini pesa ambazo wanafanya za matumizi ni nyingi. Haiko, nimekubali.
Order Mama Zamzam. Order, honorable members. Take your seat, Mama Zamzam. Order, Mama Zamzam. Order. Zams, order. 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 Order, Mama Zamzam. Mama Zamzam. Order. Mheshimiwa Zamzam. Wewe ni mheshimiwa na mama wa heshima, na mimi nakuheshimu sana. Wewe huongea Kiswahili sanifu na huwa unasema mambo yanayoeleweka. Kuanza kuchibisana na wenzako across the floor ni kushusha heshima yako. Sasa nakwambia, ondoeni ile ulisema kwamba haiko na uendelee na mambo mengine. Kubishana na kupiga kelele haina faida kwa hii chumba. Order. Order. Honorable Mbadi, order. Order. Honorable Mama Zamzam, withdraw and proceed. Honorable Mbadi wants to mislead you. Just withdraw and proceed. Order, Honorable Mbadi. Give Mama Zamzam the mic.
I withdraw, Mheshimiwa Spika.
Well done. Now proceed.
Sasa na proceed. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wakija hii bunge kila mtu ametoka kwao amepigiwa kura zake, Mheshimiwa Spika.
Just proceed without complaint.
Mimi hata nitalalamika kwa sababu amenitukana ule mzee na nywele nyeupe. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naangalia katika hata cooking stove ya kupikia wameongeza 3%. Wameongeza 3%. Naangalia motorcycle, Mheshimiwa Spika, wale wa mabodaboda ambao walipromisiwa mambo yatakuwa shwari, tutafanya hivi, bodaboda wameongezewa 3% katika custom values. Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa pia hata tairi ya gari ya bodaboda, ya wheelbarrow, tairi ya kushika wheelbarrow. Mulikuwa mnaeka tairi, wheelbarrow iko na tairi. Wacha. Kwa fuel kama mmeongeza shilingi 9, mumeongeza kila mahali. Kama mmeongeza shilingi 9 kwa mafuta, mumeongeza bidhaa zote. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka kuambia Mgala muweni haki yake mpeni. Nyinyi mlidanganya wananchi, mkasema bodaboda, mama mboga mtakuja kuwasaidia katika jumba hili. Mmepewa 100,000.
Order. Yes, Honorable KJ. What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on a standing order that provides for a member to be relevant when they're debating. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member has been on a tirade, misinforming this House and by extension misinforming the nation on gossip that has been peddled on social media and headlines. This gossip is what she has crept into the House, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the point...
Take your seat. Honorable members, order. Order, honorable members. I want us to have decorum in the House. And from now going forward, when you stand on a point of order, tell me which standing order you are standing on. And Honorable Zamzam, the etiquette of debate is such that when a colleague says point of order, you immediately resume your seat. You don't lose your time. You resume your seat, you hear the point of order, and then you proceed. What you are doing is wrong because the moment you hear point of order, you are raising your voice and menacing your colleagues with fingers and so on. It is not good. Finish up your contribution. Your time is almost up.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mimi nimalizie nikisema pengine nikiongea na sauti hii ndio Wakenya watanielewa. Mimi nataka niwaambie Wakenya mumeuzwa na serikali mliochagua. Mkate, edible oil na gari ilikuwa ni mchezo wa drama. Sasa shetani yuko ndani ya bill, pesa wamejilimbikizia ya starehe ya kufanya mastarehe zao. Wakenya mmesaulika, sisi upande wetu tunasema mtusaidie kujisaidia. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Mr. Speaker, I stood up on a point of order that I was wanting for you to superintend over, standing order number 91, that a member should be responsible for the statements they make on the floor. Mr. Speaker, all the matters that she has prosecuted do not exist in the finance bill that we are debating. She's talking about tires. She's talking about wheelbarrows. She's talking about issues that have been canvassed here by the finance chair, where he explained very well that if a motorcycle is to be assembled in Kenya, it is not subject to some of these taxes.
Order.
But she is misleading the nation by making it look like this exists in the finance bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, kindly find her out of order according to the provisions of our standing.
Order. Thank you. Unfortunately, KJ, she has already left the floor, so I cannot make a ruling against her. Secondly, honorable members, you have a bill before you. You also have a report. Order members on their feet, take your seats. You have a bill before you. You also have a report of the committee. The mover of the bill extensively made reference to the report, said this has been dropped, this has been dropped, this has been dropped. You may be convinced, you may not be convinced. When you are debating, make your reference to the bill. You also are at liberty to make reference to the report. Nobody will be tailored to have one track. Make your reference to the bill, make your reference to the report. What I will not allow you to do is to say things that are neither in the bill nor in the report, the way Mama Zamzam was trying to do. Wachira Karani.
Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, what's your point of order?
Thank you for your guidance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm just standing with a lot of due respect and concern over what you have just said. Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank you for giving us guidance and direction that we can make reference to the bill and to the report. Mr. Speaker, one of the rules of debating in this House is you can go outside those two so long as you make a link with what is in the report and what is in the bill. But when we are being told that I must speak in that narrow sense, Mr. Speaker, we are being gagged.
Order, Honorable Millie.
We are feeling gagged.
Take your seat. Honorable Millie, nobody is being gagged. The rules of debate are very clear. You can make conjecture. You can make reference to matters known to you. But when you are challenged by a colleague, you have a duty to respond and respond relevantly. The Speaker is not here to gag anybody, and nobody will be gagged, including you, Millie. All right? Wachira Karani. Yes, Junet Mohammed.
Mr. Speaker, you have guided very well, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank you. But, Mr. Speaker, having said that, can we have...
Order, Ruth Odinga. It is out of order to stand between a member on his feet and the chair.
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, you have guided us very well. But, Mr. Speaker, members must know that we are debating a bill as it is. The report is giving us proposals on what the committee thinks we need to do. But the bill as it is now is not amended. So when somebody talks about 3% on wheelbarrow, 3% on mokokoteni, he is debating in accordance with the way the bill is as this morning. And the bill can only be amended here. The proposals that you did yesterday at the State House can only happen here on this floor. Those were just a press conference. So refer to the bill as it is and refer to the report. So when it is amended in the House is when those things will take effect. Thank you very much.
Order. Otienda Molo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, understanding Order 83, my first point, I think, has just been made by the Honorable Junet. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that the majority does not diminish debate on technicalities. Everything that the chairman said in terms of what will be amended is yet to be moved. So we are at liberty to discuss everything on the bill as it is. And in that respect, we cannot be limited. Mr. Speaker, number two, the Honorable Didmas Barasa is wearing an unparliamentary hat. Could you please guide him to be parliamentary? I'll be coming back, Mr. Speaker, on your earlier ruling on these matters, but that will be later. But could the Honorable Didmas Barasa stop wearing that village hat that he's wearing here? Thank you.
Honorable members, the issue of the bill before the House, and I'm sitting here listening to all of you. I listened to the move of the bill, and he said, this bill contains this, but at committee stage, I'll drop it. That becomes part of your Hansard. So when you attack the bill, which you have the right to do, it is only fair also to make reference to what your colleague said. You can still say, Order Wanjala, I am not giving you any CAG rules. I'm simply saying the Hansard is there to bail out people. So when your colleague stands up after you have attacked something and says, when I presented the bill, I already said this, it's legitimate. But everybody debate the bill as is before the House. That is the bill that we are debating. But don't lose sight of the report which you already have, which I encourage you to read. Wachira Karani.
Thank you, Mr.
Wachira
Speaker.
Karani, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for giving me this opportunity so that I also do my contribution. Mr. Speaker, before this committee gave out the report, Kenyans listen to talk shows, to radios, to newspapers, analysis. That is what they judged the report with. In my constituency, I've visited several places, Mr. Speaker. I've gone to churches. I've gone to trading centers. I've listened to the messages. I've read the messages the people have sent to me. And I can say this without blinking. What has been presented by the committee as the report and what has been spread by the talk shows, they are totally two things that are totally different. Mr. Speaker, on my side, I chose to communicate with my voters. I told them to enumerate the clauses that are contentious, which they did. And they did on 5 contexts. First of all, they complained about the VAT 16% on the bread tax. They also complained about the tax on edible oils. They also complained about the tax on motor vehicle, the 2.5%. They complained about the eco levy, the 5 items. And I promised them that I'm going to approach the Committee on Finance so that those are addressed. I'm very happy this morning because the committee, led by the very able Honorable Kimani, has reviewed all of those. The tax on bread has been removed, the 16%. The 2.5% on motor vehicle levy has been removed. The money transfer have been removed. So me, as I stand, Mr. Speaker, I just want to thank the Committee on Finance for work well done, doing a thorough job, and listening to what we have communicated to them and acting of them. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Minority Leader.
The Honorable Speaker, let me make the following comments concerning the Finance Bill 2024. But I want to pick from where the Honorable Robert Mbui left. You know, Honorable Speaker, we have been around for some time. As a matter of fact, this, I think, is my 12th year in this parliament. And even before that, I was living in Kenya. What is so unique with this government that for 2 years in a row, the matter of finance bill is causing hullabaloo, is causing commotion, is causing pandemonium until young children are coming out the streets. We have had finance bills since 1963. We have had them. We had them during Jomo Kenyatta time. We had them during President Moi's time. We had them during President Kibaki. Recently, we had them during President Uhuru's time. But in this regime, 2 years in a row, the finance bill is causing serious problems to Kenyans. And is exposing the regime as totally insensitive to the plight of the people.
Do you want information from Kamket?
Certainly no, Honorable Speaker. How can Honorable Kamket inform me, Honorable Speaker? Really, no. So, Honorable Speaker, that is the question we must ask ourselves. And then it again raises the issue. Who advises this government? Who are the real advisors? In terms of economics, in terms of finance management, leave alone politics. Politics we can deal with later. But who advises this government? Because it seems to make mistake after mistake, mistake after mistake, mistake after mistake, Honorable Speaker. Following the outcry that happened after the 2023 finance bill was unveiled, I had imagined, I had thought that this government would be the wiser this time around. What we see is actually a worst case. As they say, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Honorable Speaker, I have read the bill in its entirety. I have similarly read the report of the committee chaired by my very good friend, Honorable Kimani Korea. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the report of the committee and together with the amendments it is proposing to make on the bill, then you come to the conclusion that actually the character, the structure of the bill is actually changing fundamentally. Fundamentally. And this flies on the face of the provisions of Standing Order 48. Honorable Speaker, at some point perhaps I would be calling upon you to consider asking the chair to withdraw the bill and introduce a new one. Because the character is changing. And why is the character changing, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, under Article 201 of the Constitution, specifically 201 sub-article A, on the matter of principles that govern or guide public finance management, Honorable Soro. Honorable Speaker, one of the principles, some of the principles that should guide the management of public finance: openness, accountability, and including public participation in financial matters. If you can come out of the blues and tell us that now these things that we had introduced in the bill, these taxes that we had introduced in the bills, we are now removing them. It is basically going against the principles of public finance management. You are turning a public finance bill into a personal property that you can change at whims. Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Chairman of...
Honorable Speaker.
Order, Minority Leader. Chairman.
Honorable Speaker, again, on a point of order on misinformation. The leader of minority clearly read the PFM Act and talked about then if changes are made, the allegations making them then significantly that bill would have to be drafted. Then the question on public participation remains. Then does it mean that he is purporting that everything that the public says is just an exercise in futility and should not change? Otherwise, then why were we involving taxpayers' money and time to reason to the members of the public if we cannot propose changes on the bill?
Minority Leader. Proceed. Give him the mic. You are giving the next. Give him his mic.
Anyway, just come. Honorable Speaker, obviously, with all the tremendous possible respect, that was not a point of order. The Honorable Chair can actually advance that argument when he gets time to reply. Honorable Speaker, let me proceed this way. That Kenyans are already overtaxed. In fact, if you look at Kenya vis-a-vis the rest of the world, you would be forgiven to conclude that Kenyans are some of the most taxed human beings on earth. And therefore, any responsible government would be looking at ways to lessen the tax burden on Kenyans, not to increase it, Honorable Speaker, as this bill is attempting to do. Honorable Speaker, in spite of the recommendations in the report, which look very flowery, Honorable Speaker, we have always been reminded that the devil is in the details. I am aware, even though this is not part of the finance bill, that there are plans to increase the levy on roads maintenance. I know, of course, the amendment will come separately. Yes. The moment you increase the road maintenance levy by even a shilling, leave alone the 9 shillings being proposed, the ripple effect is enormous in all sectors of the economy. And the loser is the common Kenyan taxpayer. Honorable Speaker. And therefore, this is a case of taking with one hand, giving with one hand, and taking back with another hand. It's not helping the situation, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this economy has become too hostile for foreign investors. Indeed, even for local investors. We have got documented cases of manufacturers who have shifted base from Kenya to our neighboring countries as a result of this unbearable tax burden that keeps shifting. Actually, you can never be sure because it is so unpredictable that no sensible investor can actually put their money in this country. To make matters worse, we are witnessing what could be compared to the state capture that happened during the President Jacob Zuma's regime in South Africa. Honorable Speaker, and I will explain shortly. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you take the case of the manufacturing sector, and specifically the steel and cement manufacturing sector, that sector is now under total control. Who is being assisted as we watch? Indeed, Parliament is complicit. We have a case where this one particular manufacturer who has the capacity to manufacture billets which are used in the steel manufacture, and actually clinker, which is also used in the manufacture of cement. To make it worse, this same manufacturer, who has got the support of Honorable Speaker, he is compelling his competitors to buy from him raw materials. To make it worse, he is compelling them to buy at a minimum. That for you to buy from me billet or clinker, you must buy quantities worth minimum of 100,000 US dollars. And you must pay me in US dollars. And he delivers when he wants. Do you expect him to compete favorably with the rest? I will name him. It is the owner of Devki Steel Company and the owner of Simba Cement. I think his name is Guru. That one. We must shame these people. We must name and shame these people. If you are to rescue our country from the clutches of state capture, Honorable Speaker, we must do so. We must do so.
Now, I am happy. I am happy at the debate and the information that is coming out from the. My point of order is 91. 91. That my friend, the leader, is. I would like him to substantiate and give us. He said he must buy from me. He must do this and this. Where did he say? Where is that factual information? You can do better by giving us, a record of what he said, other than hearsay, Honorable Speaker. You can do better than just say things.
Order, Honorable. Both of you are veering off the track. Let's avoid the temptation to dismatch people who cannot defend themselves on the floor. Go on, Minority Leader.
Yes, please. Don't.
So I will leave that at that. But Honorable Baya, stop holding brief for these characters. It doesn't help. Let me tell you, from my experience in this Parliament, they'll never really assist you in the constituency. Honorable Speaker, where we have now reached is a situation of helplessness. No wonder young boys and girls are coming out in their numbers on the streets and facing police truncheons and water cannon and tear gas, something which is unprecedented, Honorable Speaker. It reminds me of a play by the celebrated Professor Francis Mbuga, that is Betrayal in the City. Honorable Speaker, you are a literature person. If you read that play,
I read it long
You read
ago.
it, yes. There's a character by the name Jasper Windu. Okay? He was in a situation, he was actually lamenting that we have waited for independence. We were hopeful for good things. Independence came. And now we have got nothing else to look up to or forward to, Honorable Speaker.
15 minutes. Has he finished 15
That
minutes?
is the situation.
Your time is up. Finish up in 1 minute.
Children are finding themselves in this country. They have already lost hope. They are not seeing any hope in us as their leaders. And therefore, they have taken it upon themselves to come out to the streets to defend their rights, Honorable Speaker. And as they do so, those who are in charge of the instruments of the state, especially the Inspector General of Police, must be cautioned not to misuse those instruments to interfere with the enjoyment of constitutional rights by Kenyans who are free to picket, to demonstrate, to do sit-ins, and indeed to capture Parliament.
Time up.
Because Parliament seemingly has become rogue. Honorable Speaker, I oppose.
Osoro.
This report, and I have listened, Honorable Speaker, to the chair as he moved the report, and to the vice chair, the Honorable Ambassador Benja, as he supported. And Honorable Speaker, I am convinced that I pretend to be unhappy with the finance bill that have been given by this committee to amend, making, and also dealing with the matter of taxation on motor vehicle, among others. Honorable Speaker, I also support this bill because it gives additional money to the counties, Honorable Speaker. Counties have been getting around 385 billion. That is the highest that we have ever seen. And this bill, Honorable Speaker, gives an additional money to the counties, approximately 15 billion, Honorable Speaker. I'm seated to a very sharp CPA, Honorable Bandi, and he has told me that if you are not sure of the figure, say approximately. Approximately, Honorable Speaker, 15 billion to our counties. And this money is going to our road projects, health, agriculture, markets, water. What else do I want, Honorable Speaker? I want money to go to Kitui, to Makueni, to Machakos, to Embu County, Honorable Speaker. And listening to the Honorable Cecily Mbarire, Honorable Speaker, she says that the most difficult thing to do is to raise money for the counties. On source revenue, OSR, Honorable Speaker, this bill is in the right direction to giving additional money to the counties. Honorable Speaker, this bill provides additional money to CDF, the best fund in this country. Honorable members across the divide, the best monitored, the most evaluated, the most successful is getting 30 million, Honorable Speaker, per constituency, Honorable Speaker. Members on the side where I'm seated, well, where I used to be in Azimio, members who are seated on this side, Honorable Speaker, should be the ones supporting this motion because of additional money to CDF. Because our children are going to get more money. Honorable Speaker, yesterday, I watched a girl that I've been paying fees for. Let me stick to the motion. Which standing order?
Yes, Kajwang, what's your point of order?
On a point of order, the gracious lady that has just spoken, the last I checked, she was in Azimio through Jubilee. Could it be that those positions have changed, or could it just be a misleading statement, Mr. Speaker?
That is not a point of order. Go on.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your wisdom. I knew that you wanted to distract me. Honorable Speaker, I was just saying that I watched one of the girls that I pay fees for, and she was in the street, and she had written a message to me the previous day. And I asked her, you told me that it was about taxation on motor vehicle and bread. Why are you in the street? Honorable Speaker, I have just shared the video with CPA Bandi. The girl told me that she was not in the street concerning the bill, that she was doing TikTok, Honorable Speaker. And she was swinging, Honorable Speaker, very nicely. She told me that she was there because she wanted to get views for TikTok, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, and I'm going to show you, Honorable, she says that she cannot find the stones because the community that provides stones was missing in action. So she was wondering where the stones were. Honorable Speaker, going back to this bill, it is important to note that our finance bill for the previous year has made Kenya 7th fastest growing country in the world. Honorable Speaker, in the world. You need to look at this Financial Times, members seated on my side. that Kenya is the 27th fastest growing country in the world because of the bill that we passed last year. Honorable Speaker, also, because of passing a good bill led by the Chair Finance, Honorable Speaker, Nairobi Stock Exchange is the best stock exchange in the world. That is not according to Rachel Nyamai. That is not according to the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly. It is not according to the President of this country, Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto. It is according to the Financial Times that the Nairobi Exchange is the best in the world. Honorable Speaker, education is an equalizer, Honorable Speaker. This bill, Honorable Speaker, proposes approximately 658 billion to education. Our way here, because we went to school. Our parents never saw a classroom. My own parents, Honorable Speaker, never stepped in a classroom. My father he was not literate. He was an assistant chief who was not literate. So I am only here because I got education. Let us support this bill for the 558 billion that is going to education, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill because it has been assembled out here must be taxed. But the one that is produced by 4 companies, Honorable Speaker, that have set up here in Kenya must be given an opportunity, and that is the one that is not going to be put through taxation. So we would like these companies to continue working so that they can hire our boys and girls, so that we can have technicians working there. Honorable Speaker, concerning sanitary towels, also, it is the sanitary towels and pampers that are from outside the country. Those who are setting up here, producing here, hiring our children are not going to be taxed, and this is an effort towards a job creation. Honorable Speaker, this bill also is proposing additional money to electricity, last mile connectivity, 50 million per constituency. Honorable members, what else do we want? We must tell Kenyans the truth, that this country has made a decision that we need to light up this country. We need to extend the working hours. We need to ensure that there is energy in my villages, in Motomo, in Ekoda, in Kanziko, in Kasala. They must have power so that they are able to work longer and they are able to provide jobs. Honorable Speaker, every country aspires to have a net budget. And Honorable Speaker, I want to go to the figures, and I'll be careful, again, as advised by my friend here, who I have looked at his eyes, Honorable Speaker. I have never looked at Bandy's eyes nicely. But today I have looked direct into the eyes of the Honorable Bandy, and his eyes are very good, Mr. Speaker. And he has told me that let me finish, Honorable Speaker. 2021, 2022, the deficit was approximately 747 billion. 2020, 2022, 2023, Honorable Speaker, the deficit, budget deficit, according to CPA Bandy and the Chair for Finance, was 846 billion. 2023, 2024, it went higher, Honorable Speaker, 908 billion. And now, Honorable Speaker, courtesy of a good budget committee led by the Chair, Honorable Kimani Kuria, the deficit, proposed deficit, Honorable Speaker, will be 597 billion. Honorable Speaker, Honorable William Samoei Ruto is going to provide a balanced budget for this country. Watch this space. Watch this space, honorable members. He has promised to provide a balanced budget where we will not have to borrow, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, did the committee listen to Kenyans? Yes, it did. They went all over the country. That is why they have dropped matters to do with bread taxation. They have dropped matters to do with taxation on motor vehicle, among a myriad of other things. So I am calling upon everyone, Honorable Speaker, for the love of this country, for the fact that we are not only interested in...
Your time is up. Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to add my voice to this bill, Honorable Speaker. And from the onset, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I support this bill. Honorable Speaker, there seems to be an acute insufficiency of knowledge regarding what a finance bill, Honorable Speaker. And when I heard and listened to people, Honorable Speaker, speaking about this particular bill, I actually went back to myself, Honorable Speaker, and I was wondering, is it me who doesn't know what a finance bill, or it's other people who don't know? Honorable Speaker, when you hear the running call of reject the finance bill in its entirety, Honorable Speaker, it is a very irresponsible comment to make, Honorable Speaker, because of the importance of a finance bill. Honorable Speaker, allow me to, Honorable Speaker, link the finance bill and the appropriation bill. The finance bill, Honorable Speaker, is the one that enables or actually budgets or finances the appropriation bill. And without the finance bill, Honorable Speaker, we can as well declare that we don't have an appropriation bill, Honorable Speaker. The appropriation bill, Honorable Speaker, is where all of us are going to get the monies that we need for the different projects that, Honorable Speaker, we want to run in our constituencies, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill on many grounds, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I am a sugarcane farmer and I represent people, Honorable Speaker, who farm cane, Honorable Speaker. And looking at the finance bill, Honorable Speaker, and reading it together with a committee report, Honorable Speaker, that proposes a removal of the cane transportation, Honorable Speaker, it has zero-rated that particular provision, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this gives me a reason to be able to support this bill. Honorable Speaker, I come from a county that does tea farming, Honorable Speaker, and production and processing of tea. Honorable Speaker, when I read the committee proposals, Honorable Speaker, on the removal of the tea packaging material, Honorable Speaker, I am happy and I support this particular bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the eco levy has been a levy that has been up for discussion for a very long time, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I would want to say that the committee, or reading the committee report, Honorable Speaker, I gain better understanding of what an eco levy, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I support this particular levy because, Honorable Speaker, it is clear that it is a levy that is aimed at ensuring that we have environmental conservation. Honorable Speaker, this is a bill, Honorable Speaker, that is justified. That, Honorable Speaker, if you import whatever you import as a finished product, you must as well give us some money for us to be able to manage your waste, Honorable Speaker. And this, Honorable Speaker, is a levy on imported finished products, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is a levy that has been put, Honorable Speaker, on onions, potatoes, and table eggs, Honorable Speaker, that are imported. Honorable Speaker, this is the true spirit of Kenya, Honorable Speaker, that we support local production and support the prioritization of locally produced goods, Honorable Speaker. It is fair, Honorable Speaker, that the farmer of potatoes in Molo, that the farmer of onions in Trans Nzoia, Honorable Speaker, that do onion production, Honorable Speaker, is given a priority. If you feel like you need to import, you must then, Honorable Speaker, be able to pay higher,
Yes,
a better and a bigger price.
Order, Cynthia. Yes, Otienda Molo, Senior Counsel. What's your point of order and what standing order?
Mr. Speaker, I rise under standing order number 90. I have listened carefully as my colleagues on the other side are speaking. But I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, that under standing order number 90, especially 92, one must declare pecuniary interest. And I'm aware that my colleagues attended a meeting, and Honorable Soro is looking straight at me, where pecuniary interactions, this morning, were undertaken. Could, as any member speaking, start by declaring their interest, that I have pecuniary interest, and then they support? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Honorable Otienda Molo. You are grossly out of order for misreading standing order 90, misleading the House, and raising a frivolous point of order. Go on, Cynthia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in my submission of I am clear in my declaration of interest that I represent people who do sugarcane farming and tea farming. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ignore him and proceed.
Well guided, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill in its entirety. And Honorable Speaker, I also want to give an assurance, Honorable Speaker, to the Honorable Robert Mbui. When he was speaking, Honorable Speaker, he was worried that what happens if we are hoodwinked in terms of the proposal that have been put by the committee, Honorable Speaker. And he has been a very good honorable member of this House. Together with myself, Honorable Speaker, we will ensure that whatever these proposals that the committee has put in regards to this bill are actually put into the in the second reading, Honorable Speaker, are considered so that the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker, can be able to benefit from this bill. Honorable Speaker, I want to compare the Finance Bill of 2023 and the Finance Bill of 2024, Honorable Speaker. Last year, Honorable Speaker, I was pensive about the Finance Bill of 2023. And I want to report here today, Honorable Speaker, that I am a happy person that I took part in the passing of the Finance Bill of 2023, as hard as it looked, Honorable Speaker. And I am happy, Honorable Speaker, because some of the provisions that were put in place by that Finance Bill last year, Honorable Speaker, are finally bearing fruit, Honorable Speaker. You remember, Honorable Speaker, that there was an issue about the clinkers, Honorable Speaker. This year, Honorable Speaker, this country has a clinkers factory in Turkana, Honorable Speaker, that is able to produce clinkers and has reduced its importation, Honorable Speaker, by close to 90%. Honorable Speaker, if that is not a win in the last year's financial finance bill, I don't know what is, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of importation and hiking or putting the taxes on importation, Honorable Speaker, we are simply saying, Honorable Speaker, that let us be able to consider the Maxis and the Yana of this country, Honorable Speaker, that are produced locally in terms of tires, as opposed to, Honorable Speaker, the Michelin and the Bridgestone, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, this is not barring anyone from using them. It is actually saying, let us just promote local, because these ones are going to be more affordable. But if you're a person of means, Honorable Speaker, and you feel like your class is Bridgestone, you can still go ahead and do the same, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this particular bill. And Honorable Speaker, listening to Opio and I, the Honorable Able Minority Leader, Honorable Speaker, he says that this government has made mistakes after mistakes. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say this. If the results of the mistakes after mistakes that have been made by this government is the exchange rate going, the Kenya shilling doing better, Honorable Speaker, I am proudly associated with the mistakes that have been made by this country. Honorable Speaker, if the mistakes include the ease of doing business, Honorable Speaker, in this country, that is growing better every day, I want to say that I'm proudly associated with the mistakes that have been made by this government, Honorable Speaker. And I continue to support it because, Honorable Speaker, we are going to have a better future, we are going to have a better economy, we are going to have better things that are going to come out of this finance bill, Honorable Speaker. So I support it in totality. Honorable Speaker, just to speak to the Gen Z, I hear they have been referred to Gen Z, Honorable Speaker. I want to appreciate that particular generation, Honorable Speaker. And when you look at young people fighting for their rights, fighting for their space in person, Honorable Speaker. And if you noted, Honorable Speaker, they did not spoil or go and vandalize any shops in this town, Honorable Speaker. They were picketing in peace, and they were actually showing us place cards, Honorable Speaker, showing what they wanted. Honorable Speaker, I want to say, and I appreciate this committee for listening to those young members of this country and implementing some of the suggestions that they were giving. Honorable Chair of the committee, we appreciate what your committee has done, and we will be here during the second reading to support it and see that it goes through, Honorable Speaker, so that we can honor those young people and even going into the future. I support this bill, Honorable Speaker.
Junaid Mohammed.
Mr. Speaker.
Order, Honorable Millie, you are the mother of this house. This is a young first-timer. You should guide her other than heckle her.
Mr.
Order, Honorable Millie, I honored you by calling you the mother of this house. It's your duty to mentor young first-timers, not
2024. Mr. Speaker, when this bill landed in the House, Mr. Speaker, and it was tabled for the first reading, Mr. Speaker, and I took a copy of it. Mr. Speaker, I said this bill, I'm sure was not made on earth. It must have been made somewhere else, Mr. Speaker. Because no human being can sit somewhere and craft that kind of bill, Mr. Speaker, for people who live on this earth, Mr. Speaker. Why do I say, Mr. Speaker, so? Mr. Speaker, the bill was attacking a human being from all sides, from his stomach, from his head, from his legs. You cannot move, you cannot eat, you cannot sleep, you cannot travel. That's what the bill was doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was asking myself again a question. If this bill has decided to tax everything under the sun, from bread to tires of mukokoteni, of piki-piki, boda-bodas, wheelbarrows, even wheelchairs of disabled people. Mr. Speaker, I was asking myself, in the next financial year that is just 8 months to come, what will they tax now? Because you have taxed basically everything. What are you going to tax next? I thought the next taxation is going to be the oxygen now that we are taking.
Yes, order, Janet. Yes, Lelmengit. What's your point of order and under what standing order?
I'm standing under the standing order number 91, Mr. Speaker. I want Honorable Junet to substantiate that we are only putting levies on imported assembled motorcycles, not locally assembled and not locally manufactured, so that the Kenyans out there can know, can know the truth, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I have not even spoken about that. Me, I spoke about rubber. I did not talk about assembled, disabled, and non-assembled. I have not talked about that. You must be in a different house than me. You must be in Wasingishu County Assembly or something, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to proceed with my point of argument, Mr. Speaker, if this bill was done the way it was done, without the input of serious government technocrats, Mr. Speaker, then it has proved to me that this government lacks technocrats. What it has also come to prove is that when we were campaigning, this government said they have a plan. And they put everything that is flowery, that is good in that plan. But I can see now what is happening in this country is to govern this country without a plan. Because there is no plan that can recommend this kind of finance bill, Mr. Speaker, on earth. It is a process now. The process now the government or the regime has entered is to govern without a plan. And I think the people who have been entrusted to develop these bills, to bring it here, those people really want to bring down this government. And it is coming down slowly. I mean too fast. Mr. Speaker, you cannot, I want to tell my colleagues and members of parliament here, where the rubber meets the road is this house. The bill can be manufactured anywhere. It can be manufactured inside a bar, inside a hotel, inside your home, but in the end, it has to be passed here. And that is why they say there is no taxation without representation. Now, it is us, members of parliament, who will be held responsible for taxing Kenyans, not the authors of the bill. Those people, they will be found nowhere. The people whose the question will be put to them, as many of that opinion say aye, as many of that opinion say nay, it is us. Today, we have an opportunity to stand with the people of Kenya, to defend the people who elected us. Today, against harsh taxation, against imposing taxation that is going to make them, Mr. Speaker, you are taxing bread, the stomach of someone. You are taxing rubber, the mobility of someone. You are taxing money transfer and money services. People cannot afford anything to buy because the money will be expensive. What else has remained other than death now? Somebody just has to die now, nothing else has remained. But Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. Taxation must be, we know the general principles of taxation, Mr. Speaker. The general principles of taxations are known. Myself, I've interacted with the finance bill now for the 11th or 12th time, Mr. Speaker. The tax must be equitable, must be simple, must be efficient. Now we are, before last financial year and the other year, we were discussing, for example, I-tax. Now today we are coming with E-teams. Tomorrow we shall come with K-tax. Mr. Speaker, how many times are we going to change the process of taxation in this country? We are discussing here economic growth. You want to tell me this kind of bill will enhance economic growth in this country? Is that what you're telling Kenyans? Mr. Speaker, let me say this.
Yes, Honorable Jeanette, there's a point of order from Kamket. Under what standing order?
Mr. Speaker, I rise under standing order number 176. And Mr. Speaker, just a moment. The Honorable Jeanette has spoken very vehemently against the bill. He has powers under standing order number 176. I have read the report of the committee, and there is no dissenting opinion. The members from the minority side have supported this bill. His own members that he, as the minority whip, has nominated to the finance committee. If he is true to his word, can I challenge Mr. Speaker to exercise his powers under standing order number 176 to de-whip those members?
Jeanette.
Mr. Speaker, you see, we are now on the plenary of the House. We are not in a finance committee. And the decision of the bill will be made on the floor of this House, not in the committee. But I know where Honorable Kamket is coming from. I know when you collect cattle, you share with everyone. But now this is different, Mr. Speaker. We are in a different scenario. Now we are in the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker. We are not dealing with cattle. But having said, Mr. Speaker, you know, when you are interrupted like this, you lose your thought process, Mr. Speaker. But let me come back to what I was saying. Mr. Speaker, this bill, I can see the committee in their own wisdom have proposed certain changes. That's a step in the right direction, but that's not enough. That is not enough. Because there are more other things that we need to deal with, and we need to on them or shoot down the bill in totality. Mr. Speaker, let us be sensitive to the people of Kenya. Now I've lost my time. I can see I'm being told your time is up. Let us be sensitive to the people of Kenya. Because it is the ordinary person who's paying for what we are processing here. It's not us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we are going to make life difficult, for example, Mr. Speaker, we collected using that. We did not reach our targets. Now that is a proof that higher taxation does not yield to higher revenues, Mr. Speaker. Lower taxation yields to higher revenues. If you make the taxation process easy and simple, and which everyone wants to pay, that's when you will collect money. But when you tax it highly, people will look for ways to evade it. People will look for ways to not to pay it.
For giving me this opportunity also to add my voice on this very important bill, the Finance Bill 2024. Honorable Speaker, in making a decision as to whether I support or oppose, I am guided by three things. First, that is very important, and the country must understand this, Honorable Speaker, without the support of the local manufacturers. We have been lamenting for many years, Honorable Speaker, that Kenya as a country is one-way traffic. We are only importing. Mr. Speaker, it is a fact that we have manufacturers who have set up their factories in our country. They have just employed less than 5 people, and what these manufacturers do, they just import finished products. This country is facing, and it is a time bomb, Honorable Speaker, is lack of employment for the surging young population of this country. The government alone cannot absorb millions of Kenyans who are job seekers. The private sector plays a pivotal role in ensuring that we have employment opportunities so that Kenyans can have the bargaining and the purchasing power to put food on the table, Honorable Speaker. So the private sector is favoring a few individuals who are trading in cement, who are trading in steel. Honorable Speaker, I want to ask and to ask this country He has an opportunity to set up a seminar. He had so many meetings with the business community of Dubai, business community of Qatar, and Honorable Opio and I, you have got every reason to set up a factory, run it the way you want. You can even say that for you to buy from this factory, you must be wearing a black suit. Nobody will take you to court, Honorable Speaker. The third thing that is very important that made me to support this bill, Honorable Speaker, is because when those proposals were first being debated across the media houses in this country, there are a number of things that came out, and those things were punitive. Taxes on motorcycles, Honorable Speaker. But we have since engaged, and I have had a robust discussion with the Chair of Finance and Economic Planning. He has assured me that the content of his report will finally make it to the areas that are going to be amended by this House, Honorable Speaker. I have also alive to the fact that as a Member of Parliament for KISII, I have the powers to amend this bill. I have the powers to suggest amendments, including the title of the bill, and everywhere that I feel we should change this bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this bill also annexed on that level with my intelligence of proposing amendments to make it better. I am convinced that we are going to protect the local manufacturers. Kenya as a country, Honorable Speaker, we have been lagging behind. That even we import toothpicks, something that is made with a very low technology. That we have been importing diapers, access funding from banks in this country. That this bill is giving them an opportunity to become entrepreneurs so that they can set up factories that will have a competitive edge against those manufacturers who have been importing things in this discussion with the ladies of this country. I have had a discussion with girls and women from my constituency. They have raised concern about the hygiene of diapers that are imported from China. It is from this basis, Honorable Speaker, that we persuaded the Chair of Finance and Economic Planning to persuade this committee that they should consider putting an eco-levy on sanitary towels that are imported from this country while zero rating the locally manufactured one, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, by passage of this bill, I am convinced, I am energized to look for money and set up a factory in Kimilili, a factory that will produce sanitary towels, a factory that will produce diapers, a factory that will produce toothpicks, Honorable Speaker, a factory that will produce tires. Side, the increase in taxes for tires, Honorable Speaker, I don't blame them. You know, reading is not very easy. This finance bill report that the chair budget and his team produced is voluminous, Honorable Speaker. And I'm not just blaming them, but because, you know, for you to read, you must be committed. So I challenge them to go down and read the report. And even if the chair of Finance and Economic Planning has proposed those changes that includes zero rating tires, that includes zero rating eggs, that includes, Honorable Speaker, zero rating locally assembled motorcycles, I want to tell this House that we have all the powers to even propose similar proposals, so that by the time when we will be coming here on third reading, then if those proposals will not be put forward by the committee, then each one of us will have the powers to move ahead and come up with those committees, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this bill, we have been grappling with the problem of unemployment in this country. There are very many factories in this country, Honorable Speaker. This bill is going to put a stop on people whom I can refer to them as conmen. These are industrialists who set up industries in this country, but they don't manufacture anything. They don't employ anybody. They just employ an accountant who processes things from foreign countries to come here and distribute them. That is why the Finance and Economic Planning Committee was intelligent enough to say locally assembled. So even if you will import parts, you will bring in various parts, but there is evidence that you are assembling that you require to employ a Kenyan to assist you in assembling, that you require to employ another Kenyan to assist you in the cost estimation of those parts. Honorable Speaker, that is why I stand here today as a member of Parliament for Kimilili, exercising my constitutional powers and authority, that I have the powers to amend each and every section of this bill, Honorable Speaker. And being alive to the fact that the reason why the people of Kimilili brought me into this house is to ensure that the road from Rashid to Chepkwabi is tarmacked, Honorable Speaker. Is to ensure that we have a Huduma Center that is fully equipped and functional in the Kimilili constituency, Honorable Speaker. That I ensure I source for funds to tarmac the road from Maini to Kapsokon, Honorable Speaker. For those very reasons, Honorable Speaker, I stand here as a proud Kenyan, as a proud member of Parliament, supporting this bill, and I want to assure the Kenyans who are listening to me that if there is any section of this bill that is further punitive to them, I will bring amendment. You don't throw the baby in the bathwater. For my members of the opposition, Junaid Mohammed, you presided over a regime in the last Parliament that committed serious financial atrocities. You don't speak for Kenyans. The people who speak for Kenyans are the government, are myself. When you speak, the country bleeds. When I speak, the country listens. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
Commissioner Macau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, let me say I thank you for giving me this chance to voice my sentiment on this.
Where's Nzengu? What's your point of order and under what standing order?
I rise under standing order number 1.
It is not available to you. That is for the Speaker.
I just seek a guidance from you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Looking at the interest of members, I wanted to implore you to allow the cards not to be removed over lunch hour so that we can continue in the afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Mark. So that you don't lose your slots. That is a fair request. And the house will be guarded by the sergeant, so if your cards are left in the slots, they'll be safe. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll restrain myself on the Finance Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, I was very optimistic when I was going through this bill. Mr. Speaker, I had thought this government is going to redeem itself, given that the bill 2023, Kenyans underwent serious suffering, given that arose from the proceeds of the 2023 bill. Mr. Speaker, when I looked at this bill, I really wondered. Mr. Speaker, I'm listening to members saying that they come from sugar farming areas. Mr. Speaker, I come from an area where bread is the order of the day. Mr. Speaker, when you come to Mlolongo, when I looked at that bill, they did not define bread. They spoke of gluten and bread. Mr. Speaker, most of our hustlers, when you come to Mlolongo and that river, they trade on bread in terms of mandazi, in terms of samosas, and that kind of stuff. So, Mr. Speaker, when I saw this proposal of 16%, Mr. Speaker, being proposed, the bread to be subjected to VAT, it broke my heart. Mr. Speaker, as I stand in this house, when I looked at all these clauses, Mr. Speaker, I looked at clause 9, clause 25, clause 23, clause 35, clause 63, and clause 63. Mr. Speaker, these proposals, sometimes I wondered, really, they are devices of the executive on matters of this bill. Mr. Speaker, when this government, on its manifesto, they say they're going to take care of the hustlers, the mamambogas, the bodabodas, but when I look at this proposal, Mr. Speaker, none of them was addressing the well-being of those hustlers. Today, Mr. Speaker, I stand here. When I looked the proposal on data protection. Mr. Speaker, that proposal wanted to amend the Data Protection Act. I think that is Cap 21143. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind our colleagues on the other side that yesterday we had members whose accounts were frozen because the same act, the same data protection was misused, and members of the then Tanga accounts were frozen. Today, Mr. Speaker, when someone proposes that this data protection, our personal data should be given to KRA, Mr. Speaker, our government can come in place. And you never know. Your account, someone might say that you owe the government 100 million in taxes. Mr. Speaker, it's high time this House stood and said no to such proposals. Mr. Speaker, however, I have looked at the report. I know the Finance Committee have done something on it. And Mr. Speaker, we must be very careful. There is no way I'll sit here and understanding that a government must fund its budget. We must look at what is happening to the taxes that we're collecting and why are Kenyans not paying taxes. Mr. Speaker, I join speakers who say, let us loosen the tax bracket so that we tax Kenyans less, so that they will be encouraged to pay more taxes, and we are going to realize these monies that we want to finance the budget that we have. Mr. Speaker, as I stand here, I am also concerned about the proposal protecting some investors. Mr. Speaker, I come from a constituency where all the cement factories are. It is true, there is only one supplier of billets. And Mr. Speaker, the way this bill was proposed, it was proposing a 17.5% tax. That means they were going to protect the monopoly of that investor so that no any other manufacturer will find place in the market. And I agree with members that the country needs industrialization. We cannot industrialize when we give one investor monopoly power to be the only person determining who is going to be in the steel industry. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I think this one was really going to kill the industry around here. So it also applies on the clinker. Mr. Speaker, clinker is an essential element in production of cement. If we tax this cement as proposed in the bill, I think that's 10%. It means even the affordable housing that we are talking about is not going to be possible. If this bill will address on clinker being zero rated, then it means the cost of cement is going to come down and the cost of building is going to come down. Mr. Speaker, the way it is, I don't see whether this bill is going to help Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I stand here and I oppose it in totality. Let us come back. Mr. Speaker, you accept our amendments, and as a House, we look at them so that we neaten this bill so that it's going to benefit all Kenyans. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members, you may be upstanding. Honorable members, it's now 1 p.m. The House stands adjourned until this afternoon, Wednesday, 19th, 2024, at 2:30 p.m.